Just waiting for, and we are live, I believe. How are we doing, everybody? Hope everyone is doing well today
Are we
on this
doing, everybody? Hope
one.
everyone
Oh,
is doing.
I think I
Nope,
do
I
hear
got
an
it.
echo.
No, I just muted it. I just
Okay,
muted
bet.
it.
I hope everyone's doing well, guys. Everyone's having a beautiful Monday night. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll have probably more people popping in as we go on. Guys, I've got the man, the myth, the legend himself, DJ Miles, here with me today. You know him, you love him. I've had a lot of people in my community tell me that they love you for your Chainsaw Man content and the other stuff that you do. So I'm very happy to have you and talk about Chainsaw Man Part 2 of all things. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. The sentiment is likewise on my end. I think a lot of people, when they watch my live streams, when we talk about the chapter discussion, I'm always referencing no operator here and there.
Oh,
So,
I love
yeah.
hearing that. Okay, okay,
Mhm,
awesome,
mhm,
awesome.
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
So like besides like just Chainsaw Man is what else do you do? Like tell me about you.
Tell me about me. Well, let's see. So Don to Don is still kind of, a bit of a hot commodity. So we're talking about that. We're going through the story arcs one by one. I just put out a big Kagurabachi video. I still don't know how I feel about the series, but I also just wanted to have a big video out there for people who were passionate about it. And then future endeavors, we discussed this behind closed doors, but I did start a reaction channel. I didn't publicly announce it, so I think you guys, your community is the first to hearing about it. I just wanted to have some videos out there, just to get the reps in. But
Of
beyond
course.
that, man, but beyond that, no, just still trucking along with this YouTube journey. I have a merchandise store. We can maybe talk about that later. But yeah, man. What about you?
That's awesome, man. Well, look, we got some DJ Miles breaking news here on the stream. That's awesome. But yeah, man, no, like I said, like I've been seeing you like in the mix with your Chainsaw Man content. I've been seeing your Don to Don stuff. Like I personally am a big fan of Don to Don myself. I love Don to Don, especially now that it's off of hiatus. It's a really big thing for me on my Mondays. I don't know if you're all the way caught up, so I won't spoil anything. I don't know if anyone is in the chat not caught up, but um, it's I definitely after the space globalist arc, I think is where I really fell in love with the series, and it's just I think it's been keeping up. So but no, like I'm happy to see you continue on your journey with that. And right now we are here to talk about Chainsaw Man Part 2, and it's no surprise. It's not really any kind of secret that Chainsaw Man Part 2 is a little bit of a mixed bag as far as the fans go. As far as the audience has, there are a lot of different opinions on it. A lot of people don't really enjoy it. A lot of people love it and think it's the best Fujimoto has been. I even see in the chat before we even got started, there were a couple messages even saying, it's peak, and then also people saying that it's cheeks. So we are here today to decide if it is in fact peak or if it is in fact cheeks. So I guess to get started, without getting, we're gonna go into every single arc, by and by, and really just get out our full-fledged thoughts about it. But overall, I think I kind of want to spend a little bit of time as like an icebreaker, just talking about our overall feelings about part two as a whole, what we kind of think about it so far, and how we kind of feel compared to part one. So I guess a good way to start would be our feelings on part one. DJ Miles, how do you personally feel about part one as a whole? If part two didn't exist and part one was just singular, what would your thoughts be?
Ooh, okay. So I feel a little anxious because I want to get my thoughts on Chainsaw Man Part 2 out later. But to answer this first question, I think Chainsaw Man Part 1 in the Chainsaw Man verse is a self-contained, I think, perfect story. You got your middle, beginning, end. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Some people wish it could be a little bit longer, myself included. But the way it wrapped up, the story of what Chainsaw Man was in that universe, especially considering it, I think it came out like 2018 or something like that.
Hmm.
Now there's been so much established shonen properties, right? There's the tropes and all these things, and not to say Chainsaw Man, breaks a lot of them, but Fujimoto is creative with how he went about typical shonen tropes, and I never read a story quite like Chainsaw Man. So I think the testament to part one, and I think why it's so beloved, is because it was truly different than what we had when it was first releasing. And I actually envy the people who were reading Chainsaw Man Part One on a weekly basis.
See, it's funny. So like I completely agree with a lot of things that you say. But I completely disagree with the weekly basis because maybe it's just me. I personally I love reading manga or any kind of series that's already done because
Mhm.
when I'm really into something, nothing kills my momentum more than hitting that there's no chapters left of this series a part of Shonen Jump. You know, it's just you're like, oh, I had that happen with Sakamoto Days when I was catching up with it, and I was really into it. And then I kind of fell off of the reading experience for a little bit because it was like that weekly experience. I don't know. Weekly is really for certain series can be interesting, and especially with Chainsaw Man Part Two, the weekly buy and buy is actually I feel like part of the biggest reasons a lot of people don't enjoy the series. But personally, on my feelings of part one, I was one of the lucky people. At least in my opinion, I was lucky enough to read it all in a binge. I didn't get into Chainsaw Man in the first influx. I'm as a lot of people might know that have known me for a little bit longer. Like I'm a huge skeptic when it comes to big mainstream properties at first. I usually give things a lot of time to cook. People know if you know my opinions on Kagurabachi or have seen anything like that, like you'll know that I'm a fan now, not so much a fan back in the day. I will
Sure.
say, once I read Chainsaw Man, I instantly fell in love with it. I watched the anime, I think, first. Um,
Ooh, you are a late bloomer.
yeah,
Okay.
I watched the
Okay.
first episode of anime. That was my first, and you know what? I waited to read it specifically because they had already announced the anime, and I was like, you know what? Mappa's doing it. I might as well wait and just let them, bless me with at least the first season. So I did that, and I think I instantly fell in love with the first episode. Just Denji as a character, his whole dynamic as a person, and you're right. Like I think, while it doesn't like completely reinvent the wheel, or like, while it also doesn't completely do something out off the wall never been done before in Shonen Jump, it kind of does in certain aspects with just like Denji as a character, this kind of just like very weird yet lovable, very down in the dumps person that in the first chapter is literally willing to eat a cigarette just so he can get money to maybe buy some bread. Like, and then throughout the
Mhm.
series, watching him grow. Yeah, I love part one, and I completely agree with you. Like as a whole, I think it's just a perfect experience. It couldn't like the way that it starts and the way that it ends. If we never did get a part two, I would be satisfied still.
Yeah, I agree. And let me also go ahead and just say with the like I envied what people were reading back to back. I didn't I didn't read the I wasn't around during the week to week. So
Mm,
I think when Chainsaw Man ended, maybe like 5, 6, 7 months in, that's when I like first heard of it and then I like binged the whole thing.
nice.
So yeah, yeah. But I think and we can get into this when we talk about part two. Yeah, the week to week with part two. Oh my god, that's a strain. That's killing.
it
That's
it
killing.
it's one of those things where I've recently heard a term used a lot that I haven't heard in a long time, and especially it's in regard to like business and stuff. But it makes me think of the weekly reading of Chainsaw Man Part Two, which is feast or famine, which is like sometimes like we will be in a period of we are getting nothing but straight up heat from Fujimoto, which personally I feel like was kind of what we were getting recently in the Aging Devil arc, which we'll get into later. But then you also have much slower portions of part two, where like sometimes you'll go through a bunch of weeks, and sometimes you're only getting 14 pages, 15 pages, where sometimes you're like, did anything even happen this week? So I
Yeah.
guess that's like a perfect transition to like part two, which I personally, I think talking about like the week to week experience specifically, having sometimes where you go through maybe 2 3 weeks of not much happening, characters not really doing much, not much development going on. And then we go on a break week or a 2 week break week, and then we get on another chapter where not much happens. We go on a break week right after. It's kind of like it can get fatiguing. But I do personally feel like as a whole, Chainsaw Man Part Two does still have that Fujimoto quality to his writing. It's just it's a lot different than we're used to. It's not as high paced. It's a lot more of a slow burn, and he's kind of trying a lot of new things. But let me know your thoughts, honestly.
Yeah, this is why I felt anxious earlier. Even as I talk to you, I feel anxious in my stomach about it. This is Chainsaw Man Part 2 for me. Let me tell you in one word. Sigh. It's it really has some of the highest of highs. And I don't even want to say the lowest of lows. I think you're right. I'm gonna piggyback on what you said. Fujimoto's trying different things, so I'm going to let him do his new stuff and see how it wraps up fully. But it's really hard to, and you do these chapter releases too. It's really hard to dissect a 14-page chapter when we have little to no dialogue, and the little dialogue that we do get isn't anything substantial, right? Like you can read half a chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, and the JJK content creators will just get so excited to theorize for 20 minutes straight off a half a chapter of JJK.
It's so
And here
true.
we are on 14 pages of Chainsaw Man. And granted, there are different stories. I understand that. But I'm like, okay, what happened in the latest chapter? Okay, Yoru's telling Denji, you know, defeat the Death Devil and, we'll make love. It's like, okay, there's not really a lot I can just theorize and speculate on that, right? It's like, and stuff that we haven't already commented on in previous weeks. Denji has trauma. Asa has no like final say in this. Asa is also a victim too. Like, how many times can we say this without sounding like a broken record? You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And let me just say too, I think Chainsaw Man Part 2 in the beginning and even up towards the end of the Falling Devil arc, I think was at its strongest because there was narrative threads that were answered, more that were created in interesting ways, right? And then, we get to the Chainsaw Man Church arc, posts, all that stuff, and we can talk about this later. It's really hard to dissect 14 pages, and then it
It
really puts a
is.
strain, I think, on the audience too, when we have to wait sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks, which is scarce, and then here we are with another 14 pages and be like, oh man, like, I mean, my community can tell you firsthand, leading up to that sushi restaurant, I lost it. I actually lost it in one chapter because I'm like,
Yeah.
when are we going to get to the fucking sushi restaurant?
It's rough. That
You
was
know?
rough.
That time frame was so rough, and
Mm-hmm.
people saw me snap, and they're like, "You're the Chainsaw Man creator, and you're not defending it." It's like, no, no, no. I love it so much, I have to critique it. I have to critique it, and even though now I can look at it and it's not as bad,
Mm-hmm.
it still hurt during that time. It was a painful slog.
I completely agree. Especially like that streak of chapters specifically was very, I completely agree with you. Very, very painful. Because, and that's like even like what I was kind of talking about specifically, where it's like you would have like two chapters of nothing, to a break week, a chapter of nothing, to 2 weeks of break week, a chapter of nothing. And like you said, like it's like, dude, when are we gonna get to the sushi bar? It's like we've spent so much time talking about things that we've kind of already talked about, and it's just um so, and I like what you said too about how the very beginning portion, at least up to the Falling Devil, was like when part 2 was at its strongest. Because going back and kind of rereading and like going over a lot of the previous arcs just to like kind of refresh my memory for the stream, um it's actually really interesting, like how I kind of really do agree with you, where a lot of Asa's characterization, a lot of Denji's like characterization, and the things that Denji is going through, and the trauma that Denji is going through, and he wants to be Chainsaw Man, but also at least before like Chainsaw Man Church and Aging Devil and everything, but he also wants to live his ordinary life. Asa is like just constantly in her head all of the time, talking herself in and out of situations and arguing with Yoru, and really starting to build that relationship that we really see start to form in like the Falling Devil arc, when Yoru and Asa talk about how like Asa is still scared and doesn't trust Yoru. Like it's there is a lot of like Fujimoto, like one thing that I really love about Fujimoto is the characters. And I think that's why a lot of people really liked part 1, because you have such memorable and lovable characters that you really come to relate with over the course of the series. You have Power, you have Aki, people that characters that people still love to this day. Like, and like when they
Like
show
the
up, it's
violence beam, you know?
yes.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
characters like this get referenced or show up, like it's a huge chapter. Just that one chapter that got released that like Aki and Power showed up as a flashback panel was like a huge chapter.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's kind of like it's small little flickers of what once was, held between, like you said, week to week of all right, like we've kind of already seen Denji go through this. All right, we kind of with Denji, we kind of know you're going through this already. Like, all right, like
Mhm.
we kind of know Asa's going through this already. This isn't really anything new. And I will say, even like there is kind of like a moment in part two where I feel like the writing style and the direction did change entirely, right? Like it's almost like after the Falling Devil, there's that like little time skip that like you can't even really tell is a time skip because of the way that it's like paced. It's very weirdly, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, it's everything is just completely changed. So yeah, it's something completely different from what made part one enjoyable, and I think part two starts off with everything that really made part one well, with the characters and Fujimoto doing his best in his dialogue and his writing and making his characters realistic and just relatable. And now like it's almost like now that Denji and Asa and everyone is so, quote unquote traumatized by everything that's happened, it's almost like we're seeing shells of these characters, kind of limp around. And while I understand relevant wise, that's relevant to the story, it also is at the end of the day, like, and like you said, reading it probably in bulk, you might not feel that. You might get through that sushi bar, whatever span of
Yeah.
chapters pretty quickly, as opposed to going through 2 3 months of it. But so yeah, it's kind of like a conflicting experience, that it's one of those series that people will hate now, but I think after it's out and after people have time to reconsume it all in one shot, I think people's opinions might change of it. But also at the same time, I completely agree with everything that you're saying, like of that there are definite flaws of the series.
Yeah, I think I probably should have started off the beginning of the stream saying that. I think it's important, and I would actually even love to ask you here publicly
Yeah.
that I think we should have this conversation again once part two is over completely, and we can actually reread the story from start to finish, so we can now just fully grasp Fujimoto's vision.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important, just like towards the end of JJK, whatever people thought about that ending, it's like, okay, but reread the series and tell me how you still feel. And even though people are still a little bit with a mixed bag with JJK, it's still like a very respectable story to me and one that I adore and appreciate, right? From Gege. And I think I'm gonna feel the same way with part two,
Hmm.
but I will still add the caveat that part one just still feels more complete to me, right? Like I think even just jumping ahead of myself, I think it's so bizarre that Chainsaw Man Part Two has now almost been as long as Part One, right? Um, and what memorable characters do we have, right? Like
Yeah.
we have like the high
Asa.
school gang from the Devil Club, and of course like Asa's a nice welcome addition, and I think Yoshida, man, there's a lot to say about Yoshida. I remember when part two was going to be released, and Fujimoto was like, "Yeah, Yoshida is going to be more of a central figure. It's going to be in a high school setting." And I'm like, "That's so cool," because Yoshida was like a cool character, so mystique. And
Hmm.
how do I still not really know anything about
Just blank slate.
Yoshida? But not even in a good way. It's not
Hmm.
like, oh, he's mysterious. It's like, what are we doing with this guy? And also, how are we 93 chapters in and we don't have any memorable characters beyond of like the ones he wants us to focus on, right? Because even if Beam and the Violence Fiend, for example, um, they went and gone, they're so memorable to the cast of Chainsaw Man. It's like the ensemble characters in part one just really stood out to me, right?
Yeah.
It just like, even if they're in and out, they just like had a good impression, right? And to think that we're 94 chapters in, and I'm like, okay, so we got Denji, we got Asa, we got like Fami, but like I really wish we got more of Fami. Yoshida, I still don't know. Um, you know, we got geez, what's her name that people don't like? The girl, Fumiko.
And
She's
you
a
can't
mixed
even think of her
bag,
name,
dude.
right? You can't even think
Yeah,
of her name.
that's what I'm saying. And then when we get the tease of like Akim Power, I'm like, oh my god, yes, give us something to bite on over here. And it was just what, 1 page, 2 pages, and we don't really see anything of that like fully, dissected on. I'm like, Fujimoto, you're making this hard. And although I still have confidence that he will complete it and I will appreciate the story, I just hate that I'm just so conflicted already. I'm so conflicted. And let me also say too, if people love part two because it is different than part one and we have more characterization on like Asa and what he's doing more with Denji as being really broken and there's so much trauma to fully unravel with this character. I love that people who appreciate part two for that, like I really envy that perspective, right? And I will never take that away from anyone if they appreciate Chainsaw Man Part Two more than Part One because of those aspects. But it's hard. It's hard. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head there. I completely agree because like you said, like Fumiko Mifune. Sometimes every time I do a chapter review, I have to look up her name sometimes because I literally forget it. And you hit the nail on the head where there's not really any memorable characters besides Asa and Yoru and Fami maybe. And even Fami, I feel like Fami really is only popular because, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of obvious, she's just like Makima, she's just like Yoru. It's the same reason that like those characters, she's very easily fan serviceable. She's very easily whatever. Like besides, Fami is a little bit better. I would say I shouldn't say anything bad about that. Fami is a little bit more of a character than most, but Fami is compare Fami to Power. Compare Fami to Kobeni of all fucking people. Like Kobeni is a character that people still want back. There's a reason why people theorize every fucking week, every time Fujimoto teases something, that Rize is coming back. Kobeni's coming back. This character is coming back because, like you said, like the audience and the fans are literally begging for any kind of like character that they can grasp onto and be like, yes, I like this person, I can follow this person. And I think Yoshida is the perfect example because Yoshida is so bland. Yoshida is, for a character that is really fucking important and integral to the plot of Chainsaw Man Part 2, like I said, we really know nothing about him. We know he's working for public safety, which like even during the very beginning, it's like, oh, I'm working for an organization that wants to keep you safe. I understand you're trying to keep everything secret, but it's like he's this character that he wants to be friends with Denji. He's trying to manipulate all of these plot events to make sure that public safety and the people that he's working for can stop the Death Devil. But like other than that, he's just a vehicle for the plot for the most part. He doesn't really have any kind of character or anything to latch onto that people enjoy and wanna like about. Like there's nothing to like about Yoshida besides the fact that he constantly gets in Denji's way. And like that, sure, that's what a villain's supposed to do, but make it interesting. Give me a reason to be like, damn, he's a villain and he's standing in Denji's way, but he's kind of cool though. Like you said, like he was introduced in part one with the Octopus Devil. He was able to keep up with Quan Chi. Like he was able to, like he was only in it for a very split moment. But there's a reason why Fujimoto was like, people probably want to see more of this guy that showed up for a quick blip and I didn't do anything with. Let me make him integral, and just nothing really happened with him at all. It seems like he's so focused on Asa and Yoru that a lot of so many other characters got brushed to the wayside. Like you said, he introduced all those people for the Chainsaw Man Church. Who the fuck are they? They got brought up and then they got showed a picture of the other chapter, right? I was like, who are these people that you're showing me that are beat up and taken prisoner? I don't even know who these people are. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's so wild when we ended the Falling Devil arc into the introduction of the Chainsaw Man Church arc and met Miri, and then he's the guy who's like, yeah, I'm like the sword hybrid or whatever, and then there was even like tendencies that he had where it's like, oh, this is like another Denji, And I'm like, cool. Now we're gonna have like we're gonna get to know the weapons devils on like a different level, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
And then the thing I've been like theorizing for the longest time is that, well, because they're all weapons, right? Inevitably, they're going to be consumed or used by Yoru, right? And
Hmm.
that would really make sense, right? And then, this whole thing with like Reze, whatever we feel about her, right? Like, oh, here's a love interest. Oh, guess what? Now, like the new love interest, Asa slash Yoru, stripped our beloved fan character away and now
Yeah.
like puts Senji in this interesting dichotomy of like, wait, I like you, but now you just literally murdered the girl that I used to have a crush on, right? There's so many avenues I thought that Chainsaw Man Church Arc could have gone with. And when they were kind of gone in the first half, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself, and then we just like end that arc with just like the riots and Nayata like being gone. I'm like, okay, I mean, like I was fine with how it ended, but it was just a complete 180 from where I thought it was going. And then beyond that, of course, and we can talk about this later too. This is where I just feel like, where are we going?
Yeah.
Like I was more confident in this story in the first half, again, post or prior to the Falling Devil arc.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough, man. And me and my community, we always talk about Kishibe, and it's not even so much like I want Kishibe in the same way like fans like want Kobeni. It makes more narrative sense on why we need Kishibe in the story,
Yes.
because without Makima being gone, or without Makima gone, or with Makima gone, there's this vacuum. And we know that like Kishibe was one of the higher ups. So it's just very jarring that like everything that has happened to Denji's life, specifically with Naita, his house being burned down, and public safety doing what they're doing to Denji, who quite literally saved all of their asses in part one. Why have we not seen this guy? Like it's still crazy to me that we only got a reference in passing from Quan Chi that says, "Oh, a good friend told me once, don't mess with like crazy devils," and everyone's like, "Oh, that's a Kishibe reference."
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll see him in like the next 2 to 3 chapters, and we haven't, and
Hmm.
we are close to the end game. I mean, I would say we're confidently in
We
the
have to
last
be.
arc here, and we haven't heard anything about this guy. We don't know the other organization Yoshida is working for, right? Like it's man, I don't know, man. And then the more I talk about it, the more I like get annoyed. I'm just like, oh fuck. Okay, well, let's see where things go. And then let me go ahead and ask you, do you think part two is gonna end in a way where they're just going to tease a part three? Or you think he's done with this story after part two?
The thing is like I want to believe that that he is kind of doing like almost like a JoJo's thing where he's just separating his stories into parts and like
Mhm.
because even this is like the first part was public safety saga, this is the academy saga supposedly, and I know
Yeah.
the big theory, or at least the one that like would make the most sense to me if this was to happen. And again, I always like to preface that I'm not someone that gets very tied to these theories. If these theories don't happen, Fujimoto goes somewhere different, I'm not gonna whine and cry and act like this is what should have happened. And if Fujimoto's gonna do what he wants, but I think like what makes the most sense to me is if they really are unable to stop the Death Devil, and we do get this age of devils that they talk about, or they do get this new age where humans are completely erased. It's possible that might be that could be part three saga. That does
Mhm.
open the story up to a lot of big possibilities, in
Yeah.
my honest opinion. And I don't know, but also at the same time, I know Fujimoto's sentiment about Chainsaw Man as a whole. He's kind of even talked about in interviews that he kind of doesn't really want to draw anymore. He much prefers the writing process. He much prefers making stories as opposed to drawing stories.
Yeah.
Um, which I don't know, maybe ending part two the way that he does and just saving most of his story, most of his ideas or whatever he had going on in part one, the beginning of part two, and then went to go change it. Whatever it is, because like I said, I personally do feel like there was a shift in direction during Chainsaw Man Church. Um,
Mhm.
Either way, like maybe he then decides, okay, I'm just gonna sit back, write the story, and let my assistants or let someone else actually draw everything for me. But or he's just going to be
Mhm.
done. I don't know. I really could see a world in where any of those scenarios happens. I honestly, I'm. What do you think?
Uh, well, I think for the sake of my channel, I would like a part 3. There's that, selfishly. But I think going off of what you said too and how Fujimoto feels, I mean, I think wasn't that what Look Back was thing, but I don't really want this to be like what I'm known for. I want to be known for these other stories. So I'm gonna wrap this up. So if he wraps up part 2 and that's the end of Chainsaw Man, I am also okay with that. But I think if there is this ending of like, I didn't want to say like a cliffhanger ending where it's like, okay, we're gonna confront the Death Devil. We can't really do it. Oh my god, for whatever reason, Death Devil used Monster Reborn and resurrect Aki and Power, and it's like, let's do this thing, and it ends that way. It's like, oh shit, okay, sign me up. And then what you were saying earlier too was actually really interesting. If part 2 is known as the Academy Saga, and then part 3 can be known as like something else, and then we spent all of part 2 just focusing on the characterizations and the writing of these characters for part 3 to be more reminiscent of part 1, and it just like boom, let's just go into the action.
Yeah.
Let's defeat all the devils that are now surfaced to planet Earth and whatever. And now, because of the Death Devil's like abilities, yeah, he's gonna make it so fan servicey of like bringing Aki or Power, or well, I mean, Power's gonna come back in some way or another. But you know what I'm saying? Just like these beloved characters, and even they don't stay that long, it's okay because part 3 is going to be just as bombastic and quick as part 1. Then sign me up. And I think that's what I'm kind of secretly rooting for as well,
Hmm.
right? Like if we get a part 3, let's make it more like part 1 because we spent too much time, right? For
Yeah.
better and for worse, just doing these deep character dives on like us as a character, as Denji as a character, right? But I don't know. I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone, but to me, it's like Denji, I get Denji's a traumatic character, okay? But there's a different way in realizing that, oh my god, like I feel so bad for Denji differently than how I feel about like Guts, or like me being reminded that Guts is a tragic character, right? Because the
Hmm.
story of Berserk is just so fucking dark. And you like look at Guts as a character and you're like, how this man still has the will to fight for a better day is so much more better implemented in that story as opposed to me seeing Denji down for the dumps again. That like, oh my god, like okay, I thought he had his newfound resolve after the Falling Devil arc, and here we are again, like getting reminded in like the Chainsaw Man Church arc. Granted, the thing with Naita is traumatic, so he gets the
Yeah.
pass with that. But then again, to like be reminded during like the Aging Devil arc where he says he doesn't want to live and all this stuff, and I'm just like I feel like I know this,
Hmm.
right? Like I don't know how many more examples Fujimoto has to tell me specifically that like get it? Isn't Denji like a traumatic character? It's like I know he's traumatic. Can we
Exactly.
move on? Can we like ask ourselves again? Maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself. What happened with the fake chainsaw man?
Hmm.
Where's Kishibe? I'm glad we're bringing up the prophecy again, but like, what happened to like this age of prophecy? Where like, cool, we got 2 primal fears, and I feel like my questions are going to be answered in these next few chapters, where it's like, hey, look, when Death Devil arrives, we're gonna get all these high ranking devils, right? The Fire Devil, whoever other primal fears
I
are
have to
breeding.
imagine,
Yeah,
yeah, if every
right.
high level devil is supposed to be in attendance, I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, yeah. But beyond that, I'm just like, okay, like I feel like we've been very patient here, right? Like now I feel like whatever happens starting next week and beyond, we have to be getting the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
I completely agree with you. I think yeah, Denji's trauma is like, while I do again, I love Fujimoto's characterization. I love, and we'll get into more of it as we get into the arcs, because I think we kind of hit the, I think we kind of, beat a dead horse on this one, and we'll definitely move on to the story arcs. But
Yeah.
I think overall, yeah, I think we just don't know until it's over. Like you really said before, I think we should definitely come back to this discussion, once it is over, and we can really just view this as a whole. And if there is going to be a part 3, what does that part 3 look like? If this is the end of Chainsaw Man, and like, the Death Devil, like I made a joke in my Discord, the other day, and I said I figured out what Fujimoto is going to do. He's going to
Mm,
find a way to get Denji laid.
mhm.
Seconds even, I mind you, literal, maybe even 1 second, nanoseconds before Denji gets it in, the Death Devil descends and everything blows up and the world is over and destroyed. And that's
Wow.
how Chainsaw Man ends, is even at the end, right before Denji gets his nut, it all
Yeah, yeah.
ends. It was all pointless. It was all there was all for naught.
Oh,
Obviously, that would be insane. I don't think that's gonna happen. But at this point, I don't know what to. I like you said, it's like we really don't know what to believe because every time making weekly reviews has like, and for Chainsaw Man, like I don't know if you've felt the same way, but I feel like I like constantly eat my own foot the next
mm,
week because I'll be like, oh, like this is exactly what I think Fujimoto is going to do. Like, for example, like not again, we'll get into it, but in this new arc that we're getting into, like, I figured, okay, War Devil just had their whole big crazy thing. Like, famine is next, and then we get to death. So, like, I'm like, okay, like that's what's gonna happen. Fami's there, Yoshida, whatever her name is, Fumiko is there. Like, this is has to what happened. And then they go on a a rampage or whatever, and like and they go eat and they cook food, and then like you said, like Yoru's offering. It's like what are we
yeah,
even doing? Like we had all of these
yeah,
characters here in this table that are all important to the plot. You have Fami, who is literally currently enemies with Yoshida and Fumiko because they're both on opposing sides. It's like
mhm,
what are we doing here? Like it's like
yeah,
what is supposed to be happening? And it's like are they? And it's like they both want the same thing. Are they actually working together? Are they not? Is this the moment where Fujimoto tells us we won't know? Because we're
yeah,
never gonna find. There's yeah, and it's like I said, going through the series, I definitely agree with you. I want to read this super chat from
yeah,
Tiberius
yeah.
before we move on. Thank you for the 10. Appreciate you, Tiberius. You're the man, the myth, the legend yourself as well. I say that too often. People are all I know not everyone can be man, the myth, the legends. Then it just doesn't mean as much. Um, a big theme in Chainsaw Man is no one can define your happiness. Denji's animalistic in a sense. I think a chunk of people just can't buy into Denji's journey anymore. Part two was his attempt at living a normal life. I completely the part two. I think Denji's trauma really has fluctuated because, like, even in the beginning, Denji goes from, we'll get into it, the story arc, but Denji goes from, I love this, I'm living my best life, I want to be the superhero, to then he gets told he can't be the superhero anymore. He doesn't want to be the superhero anymore because he can't get laid doing it. But then maybe he can get public recognition. But then he can't get public recognition because Yoshida tells him that he can't. And then he's like, oh, well, shit, what do I do with my life? My life is pointless. And I might as well live my normal life. And then his normal life gets completely torched. And he's like, I've got fucking nothing left now. What the fuck do I even fucking do at this point? What is there even to live? And it's like at a certain point, it's like, I don't know. When does it just become torture porn for Denji? It's like, Fujimoto, do you just enjoy doing this to your characters?
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. But I like I said, I enjoy Denji's characterization, but I definitely understand why a lot of people are just falling off of Denji's journey, like you said, Tiberius, where they're just like, all right, like I was relatable, like like you said, 30 chapters ago. Now it's like, all right, it's kind of getting old. Let's move on. Let's see Denji pick himself up and move on. But what are your thoughts,
Mhm.
DJ Miles? I'm sorry, I talk way too long.
No, 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 no. I talk way too much too, man. I think we're the worst at this. We're just gonna give thesis statement after thesis statement. I say, you know what? I think a lot of these questions can be answered when we dive into the specific arcs. If you want
Yeah,
to go ahead and transition to that.
perfect, awesome. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So first things
Mm,
first is going to be, of course, the Justice Devil arc. I think Fujimoto had these named and separated differently in the beginning, but then he changed it around at first. I think it was like the intro and then like the war, but now it's just Justice Devil all
right.
completely, whatever he wants to do.
Mhm.
So I guess like I have a couple notes here so we can kind of stay on top and kind of go through and
Yeah.
everything like that. But do you have any kind of thoughts or any kind of memories specifically towards this arc that you wanted to get out before we kind of just like, went through it?
Sure. Yeah. I think initial thoughts is, we're riding off the high of Chainsaw Man Part 1. We're curious to see what happens in Chainsaw Man Part 2. I even love how we don't see Denji for the first like 4 to 5 chapters.
Yeah.
And it's all about Asa. And I'm like, yes, like I am so on board with this. I love the different POV. I love that it's been what, like a year and some change from the events of part one. And then when Denji makes his grand entrance and that whole like the beginning of him like sucker punching that like cockroach devil and then like ending it with him holding on like to the cats or whatever. Dude, it started so strong.
Oh
And
my God.
immediately, right? Like dude, man, I see. This is why it pains me about how I feel about Chainsaw Man Part Two because this beginning was so strong. You know, we see the War Devil. You know, she makes the reference about like, you know, I'm gonna make you vomit the nuclear war, and we're like, oh my god, like people already speculating what the hell this could mean down the road. You know, even the ominous introduction of like who Fami was, right, leading up to like I am the famine devil, right, and we're like, oh shit, the four horsemen of the apocalypse theory is a thing, you know. Even the tease of the fake chainsaw man, we're like, bro, what is this, you know, like what is this, like, you know. And he made some little subtle nods to like Spider-Man, right, where like, you know, like the whole like the Green Goblin, like, pick who do you want to save, like these people or like the cat or whatever, right? You know, there's that, and then you know the whole thing with fake Chainsaw Man thinking like, oh man, it's gonna be kind of like a Venom Spider-Man thing. Like, is he gonna fight this doppelganger? But who is the doppelganger? And dude, it just, and then even leading up to like Haruka with the fake lever, and we're like, boy, dude, there's so much shit. I cannot wait to see him unravel and, you know, divulge to the audience. And I loved how those beginning arcs or
Oh no. Oh no, did we lose you? Hold on. You froze. Uh-oh.
can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, we're good. We didn't
Okay,
lose you for
I
too
don't know
long.
what happened.
That was weird. Yeah, I was
Okay,
gonna say you like froze. I got most of what you said. You only froze for like 5 seconds there.
gotcha. Well, I was just basically saying, just to wrap up initial thoughts, I just love what part two set up in the beginning and how there were so many breadcrumbs that I wanted to know about, and just knowing what part one was to see now him like do again in part two.
Yeah, I think you really basically encapsulated most of my thoughts with the Justice Devil arc because I think it really is such a strong start to part two. Honestly, it's no surprise. Asa Mitaka is definitely one of my favorite characters that Fujimoto has made. Like I genuinely really very much enjoy Asa's character, her antisocialness, the way that she's constantly in her head and the way that she carries herself, how she constantly like not so much thinks that she's better than other people, but she like rejects, you know, society. I'm better than that. I don't need friends. But the moment that her classmates want her to join in with Bucky, you know, the class pet devil or whatever, and she's like, actually, you know what? All I wanted was friends. After all, that's great. And then, you know, she gets tripped and she kills the chicken, unfortunately. And you know, it leads to the whole introduction of the quote unquote Justice Devil, which we find out later, of course, isn't really, you know, completely the Justice Devil. But still, you know, the class president tries to kill her because she has the whole thing with the Mr. Tanaka, and she was the one that made Asa trip all along. And Asa has this moment right before she dies that she's like, wow, you know what? Maybe it wasn't just me, you know, and I like the introduction of everything of her character, and like you said, that we don't see Denji, and I'm okay with not seeing Denji. For surprisingly, you know, here it is. We like you said, 5 something chapters we don't see him, and that's okay. And that's how you know, like Fujimoto was in the top peak of his writing at this moment, because it's very tough to follow up like a sequel, like not it's a part 2 of a series. It's not necessarily Chainsaw Man 2, but still and like go into it like it's almost like I think of like Metal Gear Solid almost. I don't know how much of a video game person you are, but
Mhm.
like Metal Gear Solid 1 was all this character, people love this character, and then Metal Gear Solid 2 starts with this unknown person you've never met before, and people fucking hated that shit, but now people love it because they love that character now after they've had that time. So I think it's a very bold writing decision to do that and to start your part 2 off with a completely new main character. um and I think I agree with everything you're saying with that. I do want to point on and get your thoughts on Asa's dream that she has that starts with Bucky,
Ooh.
right? Which is like something that has been constantly foreshadowed throughout the series. I think it even gets brought up one more time again in this most recent arc. Before she gets
Mhm.
transported to the aging world. I think actually when she's transported to the aging world, she has the dream one more time. And I'm
Yeah.
curious on your thoughts about that.
Dude, I have no idea because even when you look at part one with Denji and like the door that Pochita was hiding Denji from, right? Which was the truth about like the father and the trauma that came about it. Um, I have no idea where we can go here, right? I would just imagine that this is like one lasting trauma that Asa has to break through into fully realizing who she can be, right? And even overcoming the bullying is not the right word here, but like telling basically Yoru to fuck off, right? Like, no, no, I am my, you are in my body. You're going to do what I say, not the other way around, right? So I have no idea where this can go. It's funny how a lot of the promotional stuff had Bucky. And, I thought what would have been nice is that whatever happened within these reoccurring dreams, that Bucky is just there, right? Because like Bucky was like this person
Bucky's her
that
Pochita.
everyone loved. Yeah, 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 yeah. This would have been just a nice thing to play on because everyone loved Bucky. Like everyone made so much memes about Bucky in the beginning of part two, if you can
Yeah.
recall that. And I just thought it would have been nice if every time we got this reminder about this reoccurring dream, if it was like Bucky talking to her in the way that Pochita's like, Denji, don't open the door. Right. Like if Bucky was now like the equivalent of Pochita for her and her spiritual guide, right? That like, hey, like this dream is gonna unravel something. But what it is and where I think where it can go, dude, I'm honestly stumped. I have
hmm
no idea. What about you?
I like. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, that was it. Yeah, I was
Oh,
just curious to get your thoughts on it.
so like, yeah, like it definitely is Asa's version of the door for Denji, right?
Mhm.
So like, especially with it keep coming back, it like you said, is it tough? Is it the same thing as Denji's dream where it's like it's warning Asa of something, it's telling her to stop doing something? I think it's mostly like it seems to be very much tied to her whole tripping thing, right? And that's something that's very strong in the very beginning of the story, which is the part that we've already established is it has the strongest portion of writing. I don't know if I've seen it in the more recent chapters, but she always has this. She mentions she always has this tendency to trip, which is starts with the Bucky thing. I think she even trips later when she's trying to save her the new friend that she makes, Yuko.
Mhm.
When she's trying to save her from the new Bat Devil. Which I also think is really cool that Fujimoto puts in a lot of the devils and reuses them. Almost as like not just a parallel to part one, but like also to show that like the devils die in hell because and like they come back in the human world. I think that's really cool. That's like keeping up with the world building that we created in part one. But like the way that I view the dream is like she's constantly tripping, right? And at first it starts with Bucky. And she's running down this hallway. She's running down this hallway that starts to pile up more and more with bodies that she keeps tripping over to the point that there's not even any ground to run on. She has to literally climb over all of the bodies to continue going down this path. And like for me, like the way that I view it is like I think it's interesting because something that Asa harps on specifically in this arc when she's saving Yuko from the Bat Devil, and even when Yuko ends up making the contract with the quote unquote Justice Devil, and then after that whole big fight happens, she survives and she's like, hey, I have to go leave. I'm going to go see if my relative that's a devil hunter can help me maybe get back to normal and we can live human life. And they share that short moment with the shoes and they laugh
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
And Asa's like, I'm laughing right now, but I essentially caused this. Like this person did this contract because they saw me do a contract and they thought that they could help me and take out the bullies and don't show up to school the next day type shit. And we're laughing at this, but at the end of the day, like all like this is another person that I have dragged into down with me, as she puts it, at least.
Mhm.
So like I think it's interesting that the dream kind of follows with that concept that we kind of haven't really revisited recently.
Yeah.
Is that like Asa, especially with we also find out in this arc that Asa's mom died during the Typhoon Devil fight. She died because she tried to save the cat. she tripped, tried to save the cat, and then her mom died because of that. So she has this constant survivor's guilt of these people die because of me. So it's almost like
Mhm.
as she's going down this path that she's going down, more and she keeps tripping, more and more people and more bodies are stacking up, which honestly track with everything that we've seen throughout the story. I mean, if you think about it, with what just happened, we'll get into it. The aging devil, how many people lost their lives because Asa decided to take on take Fami's plan and go that way, because she keeps trying to do the right thing or do right by people, and she keeps tripping onto more and more innocent dead bodies. And at least that's the way that I look at it, because it just seems like the way that she describes it is the way the longer I keep running down this path, the more and more bodies continue to stack up until I have to literally climb over them. And I just feel like we've actually been seeing that happen.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's just
Yeah,
my
I really have
perspective.
no, no, no. I was gonna say, honestly, everything you're saying sounds good to me. I think if anything, I'm just a little bit more disappointed that like we haven't been reminded as much throughout the story, if that makes sense, right? Like I know we're like Asa, I think, feels this way in the beginning, at the Chainsaw Man Church arc, right? Like, post Falling Devil arc, she's reminded again. And then I think, like you said too, somewhere around the Aging Devil arc, right? Like she gets reminded again, but I'm like, oh, why hasn't this like compounded into something more and more? Right. Like I
Yeah.
still feel like I only know just as much as I like first was introduced about like this reoccurring dream from the beginning, right? Like, okay, I know she feels guilty about something. There's obviously something with these dead bodies that like she's feeling ashamed of. And I think that's maybe playing so much more in the most recent arc of like why she hasn't shown up, right? Because according to Yoru, she's saying like she doesn't even want to come out because
Her
she feels
mind
so
is
guilty
broken
about
or
like,
something like that, which I guess
yeah,
I
yeah,
even
yeah.
her characterization and talking to Denji during the age, even in the aging world, didn't signify that to me. But I guess that's just,
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe we'll see more about that. But
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's all I have to say on that part. So
yeah. So I think we do nail a lot of the early characterization, and we get a lot of the reasons why, as you mentioned, that we do have a fondness for this very beginning. I think Yuko, her whole scene with Asa when she reveals that, she killed her neighbor who's gambling his welfare money away, stuff like that. Like, I remember that scene sticking with a lot of people. It stuck with me, and like it really
yeah.
shows when how Fujimoto is able to panel his pages sometimes and just make you sit on like a moment of silence that two characters are having, and like you really feel like the awkwardness, you feel like how long these characters are taking to talk because of how weird the situation just got. And that's
Mhm.
something that I think Fujimoto does very sparingly in part two. We don't get it as much, but like it shows that he does still know how to make characters interact and how to make conversations feel impactful, at least in this early part of the story. Um,
Mhm.
we get Yoshida's introduction, everything like that, which, as we kind of harped on, right, he doesn't really have too much of a personality. I'm kind of seeing if there's
Mhm.
anything really. We get Famen's introduction. Asa makes the whole uniform sword. I thought that was really cool. We get that moment where we learn that weapons that are made from love or weapons that have fond memories are the
Yeah,
strongest. She makes
yeah.
that cheap little sword, but it destroys the Justice Devil.
Mhm. Mhm.
And yeah, I think the biggest thing that comes out of this as well is the reveal of whatever this fake Chainsaw Man is, which unfortunately we still haven't really got anything from. Which at least
Yeah,
even at
yeah,
this part, and even in the Falling Devil, I think that's the last time we even get mention of the fake Chainsaw Man.
yeah.
So it seems like it was set up at this point to be such a big thing.
Mhm, mhm. See, when you remind me, I just get annoyed. I get annoyed because if we're critiquing just this arc specifically to where we are now, I think this was quite literally like at its peak. Like
Yeah.
you're giving me everything I want. You're introducing these concepts. We got two back-to-back Horsemen of the Apocalypse right away. We got a fake Chainsaw Man. We have our focal point of Asa, which even before the aquarium stuff, which like dragged a little bit, which is the next arc. I still loved everything about her character, and just even knowing the introduction of Yoshida too, of like, okay, here's this weird, quirky, suave kind of guy. What's his memo? I can't wait to learn more about him. Spoilers, we still don't know shit about him, which is annoying. But prior to any of that, right? I loved what this arc did. And like you said, I think it's God. how do you introduce the concept of like an evil Chainsaw Man, this doppelganger Chainsaw Man, whoever this is, and you haven't dived into it, right? It's dude, and that's why it hurts. And we can talk about this during the Fallen Devil arc. When we see him again, I'm like, oh my god, dude. The Fallen Devil arc was also fucking peak to me.
Yeah.
It just it's so crazy. It's kind of like the revolving or the revolving door. The whole thing about Denji and the door sprinkled throughout part one. It was leading up to something grandiose, and when you got it, like it definitely hit hard. So it is surprising how like I can't speak for everyone, but again, the whole concept of like this fake Chainsaw Man, it's like, and where it was building from this arc, you know, the dating Denji arc is kind of whatever, but like it still kind of was a connecting bridge, a necessary connecting bridge to the Falling Devil arc, and then we get this fake Chainsaw Man again. I'm like, dude, where are we going with this? I love it. Give me more of this. Why you haven't brought it up again is fucking surprising me.
Hey,
But
it's I definitely want to I definitely, and I know that you feel this way. This isn't me saying that you don't. I definitely think that it still could be something that definitely comes back into the picture and could be something that ends up being really big. Actually something that I thought of while I was walking my dogs, because again I was re-going over a lot of the recaps of the story and refreshing myself with a lot of the memories and things that happened. I actually thought it would be really funny if we still, like I said, we still don't know what's going to happen with the Death Devil and what even is remotely about that stuff. How funny would it be if this was like a Denji or like a Pochita, like from the fucking future or some shit, right? Like something like after the Death Devil hit, and he's like, look, that's why, like, because I think in the Fallen Devil, we'll get to it, but I think like what he says is like, look, I can only do this. You have to do the rest of this yourself and survive until whatever. I can only do
yeah.
this. You have to go now. And that's all he's able to do. So like it's like almost like that one part, it's so funny to me where I was like, I literally was like, is that like Denji or someone literally like from the future, or like another version of Pochita or another version of the Chainsaw Devil being like, hey, I can't outright go out and help you, but like I can only do this much to keep the things going that it needs to go. Because I don't know, like
Sure.
there is the whole talk of the introduction of the prophecy, and like how like maybe this like I think this happens later on, so I don't want to go too into detail with it, but Yoshida brings up how they made the contracts with the future devils with all the people that's almost guaranteed to
That was
happen.
leading up to the Falling Devil arc. Yeah.
So like I said, it could potentially be like maybe there is some kind of time, not time travel necessarily, but some kind of like fate, some kind of like keeping everything the way that it needs to be, like involved in that. Because at this point, that's all I can speculate, because that's how little we have of it. You know?
Yeah, honestly, if they do some like X-Men Days of Future Past shit with this, and
Yeah.
like everything you're saying to me, like, bro, you know what? If he can make it make sense, I'm not opposed to any of the stuff you just presented to me.
It's so
Like, if
funny.
that's the
Oh,
solution,
go ahead.
yeah. No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, it's so funny. Like, are you a JoJo's fan? Have you watched JoJo's?
Yes.
Watch
Yes.
part
I
four?
haven't read any of part nine really, but like went through it.
Okay, but you've done part four, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of almost like that thing where like Araki in the beginning of part four set up like past Josuke would help future Josuke. So this isn't really a spoiler to anyone that hasn't seen JoJo's. And then like he just does nothing with that concept at the end of the part four, and it gets it, and you're like, wait a minute, why did you do that, Araki? What was the point of that? And they
yeah,
even still adapted it in the anime. And like
yeah.
the only answer that like the fandom is able to give is like, oh, I guess it was just someone that looked like Josuke. And that's and then he just took the
I
hairstyle
know.
from that. And it's like, okay, you can say that, but like, was that really his intention when he put that in the fucking manga? Who knows? But like that's what it reminds me of almost. Like it could almost be like a thing where he's like Fujimoto was like, hey, this is awesome. And then he's like, you know what? I don't really need to answer this by the end. Like fucking
Yeah.
Miwa in the Culling games. You know what? I'm not gonna do this plot point. We're gonna skip past this.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of like how God, I don't want to talk too much about JoJo, but it was like in part six where they're like, there's like, I don't think they said it in the anime. So good on the anime if someone wants to fact check me, but they said it in the manga where it's like, oh, Giorno is like senses the presence of like what's happening in part six, but then like you don't see him. It just like
Yeah.
brought up that like Giorno like knows kind of like what's happening or whatever, or like he's aware about
I
something, but
think they
they just don't
did say
introduce
it in
him.
the anime. I think it's like he's in Florida, but he's just not involved. Like I
There we
think
go.
like
There
Fate
we
had
go.
him
Yeah, yeah,
show
yeah.
up at Florida, like he was just
Yeah.
conveniently in the same area, but he just wasn't involved with whatever was going
Yeah.
on. Which like
Yeah. And
I
yeah.
kind of think maybe Golden Experience Requiem might have had something to say about the gravity of the entire world shifting. But well, we don't have
Yeah.
to go too much into that, like you said. We're getting off topic. But yeah, I think overall, like I think we really hit everything we possibly could about this arc. It leads right into the Falling Devil arc. So overall, I'm not into the Falling Devil, dating Denji arc. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I wouldn't necessarily classify this as an S rank Chainsaw Man arc. Like if I'm like I want to reread Chainsaw Man, I don't know if I would
Mhm.
put Justice Devil at S, but maybe based off of everything that we're saying, this might be an S. I'm curious on how you feel.
Man, yeah. I mean, S is like cream of the crop type of stuff, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I guess honestly, if we were to compare it to any other arcs, personally, it's my S, but is it deserving of S? I don't know. I'd say it's definitely a strong A. It is not a B. I think anyone thinking it's a B is it's kind of capped. Right? Like
Yeah.
it's a strong A to me. I mean, if you want to put it in S, I won't complain, but I think it's like that A plus tier, without a doubt.
No, completely. I completely agree with you. Can I always on top this? Is there a way that I can always on top Discord pop out? I don't know. I'll figure it out. But yep, stay on top. Perfect. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think it's definitely a strong A for sure. I would honestly like if we by the end of this are like, you know what, considering everything that we've ranked just part two as a whole, want to consider
Yeah.
it as the S, I'm okay with that. But I agree with you. Like considering it is part one, I think I'd have a couple more arcs in S besides the Justice
Mhm.
Devil arc, but maybe we'll disagree. Maybe we'll disagree
Yeah.
and maybe we'll see. But that brings us into the dating Denji arc, which is honestly it was fun to go through it again because again, like we said, this is just when Fujimoto's characters, his writing was at his strongest. Like I think something that I've realized as we've kind of been talking is the reason why we were okay with not as many characters being involved in Justice Devil arc is the same reason we're kind of okay with not as many characters being involved in this arc and the next arc, but where in Chainsaw Man Church and the Aging Devil arc, it kind of gets a little bit more inexcusable.
Mhm.
Because in this arc is when we get introduced to most of the Devil Hunter cast, right? We get introduced to Kopeni's brother, we get introduced to Haruka more like formally, right?
Yeah.
Denji meets him, everybody meets him. It's much more of like I am going to be a staple character in this story.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so it's almost like okay, like this is the cast of characters we're going to follow. I feel like at this point it was excusable, you know what I mean, to not have as big of a cast of characters. We're just starting the introduction arc, we're just starting we're getting to know our new main character Asa. We don't want to introduce too many new people. Yuko is this
Mhm.
new character, we have Yoshida. Yuko dies, that sets up
Yeah.
story later. I'm okay with that. When we
Yeah.
introduce these characters now, they feel like characters that Fujimoto had at least been like, okay, I'm gonna think about these characters and I'm gonna use them later. And then it's almost like they don't really do too much later. But we're not talking about that later. But
No. No.
we're kind of harping on that. But I guess overall, like I think what I'm trying to say is these characters are the strongest in this moment because they're just getting introduced. We don't really know them too well. They don't need to shine too much. You know what I mean? We're still focusing on Asa and Denji getting to know each other in this arc, which is honestly, the biggest highlight for me is seeing Asa and Denji have their really first big discussion, get to know each other. They have their date, and at first they're Asa is just fucking ridiculous and just thinks that Denji wants to know everything about Starfish, and it's like, no, we're gonna talk about Starfish for 30 more minutes. He just wants to see the fucking penguins. Like, and then
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
finally have this moment where Asa trips again after they get trapped in the Eternity Devil's
Yeah.
trap, and she
Mhm.
breaks her cell phone. Everyone gets pissed at her. She's left alone to cry, and Denji comes back and says, "Hey, you know what? Life fucking sucks. Let's fucking make some Starfish and let's just make the best of what we can." And they actually realize that they do have a lot in common and they do have chemistry. And I think that is the highlight of this arc for me. I don't care about the Eternity Devil coming back. That's great. The Eternity Devil arc is fine in part one. It's not one of my favorites personally. So seeing him come back, I was like, all right, whatever. It is interesting to me seeing how this was all caused by Fami, but again, we can get into that after we kind of discuss Denji and Asa. If you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I remember the week to week, it did feel like a bit of a chore, but now hearing your thoughts on it, I do like, despite what we know what the Devil Hunter Club becomes, presently, I like this introduction of like, oh my God, he has a lever. Oh my God, like obviously Fami's a part of the club, but it looks like she's truly running the show here, right? You even have the silent what's the big guy called? Not Haruka. Who's the other one?
Uh, th-
Akoku,
yes,
right?
there you
Where
go.
I made a video speculating that like he's the fake chainsaw man, so please let that be right. If that's right, I just want to say I called it a long time ago. At this point, I don't think it is. I digress. Um, but you're right. Even the dating, Asa and like Denji now being put in a position where they're forced to now communicate with each other, even though Denji is not about it. But then later on, like kind of lifts her up, and there's that like one panel of them like running and they're kind of like smiling or whatever, and Asa coming into her own of like, oh, like I can just do what I did back at the school, right? Like I would just say like this aquarium is something I possess now, right? So like her coming to that conclusion, I think was a big step for her character. Looking at it again from what I can recall, like them interacting for the first time, I like the meeting the cast is fine. Even Yoshida doing the quirky thing of just randomly appearing. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is Chainsaw Man, so it's gonna be weird like that. You can give it a pass, right? So, and I know you said you didn't care about the Eternity Devil, but to find out that it was that, right? I actually really liked because now reading it, it's like cool. We see the Bat Devil, we see the
Yeah.
Eternity Devil, right? Like now, like I'm like, oh shit, is he just gonna run through the gauntlet of our, semi antagonist, semi antagonist with like Katana Man next? And like, could we get something with like the Bomb Girl again? Right. So, like, at this point, I still think the story was still strong and interesting. But I will still say too, even just to critique it, it would just
You froze again. We lost him, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, you're back. Hold on. Oh, you're breaking in and out. You're like making noise, but you're like in a tin can. Nope. The internet devil's attacking him. Oh, you're coming through a little clearer.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, here we go.
I'm here. I'm here.
You are here. You're wait.
Hello?
Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, now we're moving. Okay, perfect.
We're good. We're good.
We're moving.
See,
We're
you know
jiving.
what? The one day it just decides to rain hard like crazy in Florida. The day of the stream. So, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you're good now. You're good now.
Okay. Awesome. What was the last thing you heard me say?
We pretty much heard, like I said, it was pretty much down to, you said you like everything. You said, and then I think you were getting into the one thing that you did not like.
Yeah. That essentially this is still a connecting bridge arc to me going into the arc that I think a lot of people can get behind, which is the Falling Devil arc, because that's when we truly get the main meat and potatoes of what this story was going to be, right? But we can talk about that when we get to the Falling Devil arc.
Yeah, no, I definitely, it's funny you say that because I think this is definitely the beginning of the slow burn style of story that Fujimoto started to tell, where he's taking a lot more time to let his characters just sit down and talk. Where this is definitely like this is where, like, I think Fujimoto started to prioritize dialogue a lot more in this scene, where we get a lot more of like pages, and unfortunately it is only 14 to 15 pages sometimes when he does this. Otherwise I think everyone would love it, where it's like where we'll have multiple pages of just, sometimes it's just characters looking at each other, like it's four different panels, four on each side of different characters, and it's just like their reactions to the characters, the things they say or the words that they're making or their facial expressions. And while I love that, like, he does that, it does make for a very slow weekly experience. And I think that's definitely the start of that. Oh, I think you might have frozen again, sir. You're poking through again. Oh no,
I hear you.
the rain
I'm here,
devil.
I swear.
Okay, you're coming through.
Okay, dude, I'm telling you, it's the rain. Because my internet bar is still showing like three,
That's
three
weird.
strong bars.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I hate it, man. I hate it. I'm sorry.
Hey, it is what it is.
But
It is
I
what
heard
it is.
everything you said.
Act of God, act of God. It's all good. No, it's all good. Give me 1 second. Let me yeah, and I think that, so that starts the slow burn, everything like that. Um and then I guess something that is also very important in this arc that gets revealed is that Fami has interest in Yoru changing Denji into a weapon. And this is, I don't know if she outright reveals it in this arc or we find out later. But the main reason that is because we know that Fami, just like public safety, is very much aware that the Death Devil is coming. She believes that the prophecy is correct and her sister Death is going to arrive. And she believes that the only way that they will be able to keep humans alive, which again, Fami only wants humans alive because she likes food. That's quite literally the only reason she doesn't want any humans to die. And she believes that if they power war up enough, they should be able to, they should be able to stop the Death Devil, which I don't know how well that's going to turn out. But this is the first time that I think Yoshida either encounters Fami or finds out that she is, quote unquote, as you said, being the secret leader of the Devil Hunter Club, which eventually becomes the Chainsaw Man Church. So, like, I guess, like, with Fami's initial goal here, and I guess how she kind of proceeds to move forward later in the arc, like, how do you still feel about her introduction? Like, do you think she still seems like a very foreboding villain at this point? Like, do you think that the foreshadowing isn't really done too well? Like, what's your take so far on, like, Fami doing what she does and everything that's going on?
You're saying presently or just up to this point in the story?
Just in general, you can talk about presently. How do you, like, from from this point on, like, what are your thoughts on, like, how she acts in this arc?
Sure. I mean, I still think she's a threat, right? Like, so even though we get some like Fujimoto humor here, right? Because it's like quite literally like transitions nicely into the Falling Devil arc, where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, like I want to save humanity because like I want like food, right? Like I want to indulge in the the things that we have here on planet Earth. So I can't have my sister come about doing her thing. So when we get the tease of like the fake Chainsaw Man to Haruka with the lever, and you're like, and Fami just behind the scenes she's kind of running things, and even that stare down. Remember that panel of like
Yeah.
Yoshida looking at Fami for the first time, and people are like, "Yes, dude, Yoshida wants to fuck her up, and I am here for it." And I'm just like, I don't know if he's gonna win, but I love this stare down. And again, this is at its strongest who Fami
Yep.
is, everything I want to know about Fami. And yeah, it's disappointing to know fast forward where we kind of get like this Avenger swarma thing of people just nonchalantly eating at the restaurant. And I'm like, are we not gonna get some interest, like important exposition on like what the fuck is happening with like Fami? What is her motive? Right? Like if she's been omitted out of the Aging Devil arc, and we'll get to that when we get there, and the only thing we saw is that she ordered some chocolate cake and that's it.
True, she is completely
I'm
absent.
really
She literally
Yeah.
starts, quote unquote, like, basically sets everyone up, brings everyone together for this big fight, and then just, like, dips, and she's not present at all during it. But it,
Yeah,
eh,
and then even like, okay, I think the last part too was like post Falling Devil arc. It's like, okay, she's now working with the weapons, right? Like, so Falling Devil, she failed. Now she's basically working with all the weapons, right? Like Barum is her second in command. And again, the beginning of that arc is also very strong to me, right? Like I'd say the first half of that arc is strong. And I'm like, oh shit, like, they're fighting over the possession of Denji, right? Like, public safety and Denji being almost converted to join the hybrid slash weapons, right? And we know Fami's running that. And I'm like, dude, give me all this shit with
Mm-hmm.
Fami all day. I appreciate it. And then it just like we're just slowly just not knowing anything about her. And this is kind of like the Yoshida problem of like presently, right? Where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, this worked in the beginning because like there's setup obviously being presented here. And now we're not doing anything. And I think it just a bit of a waste that look, if you want to say Yoshida just weird and bland, that's fine because that's Yoshida. But there's
People love Yoshida. I'm personally, I don't know why, but oh no, we lost him again.
where I'm here.
Oh,
Here.
you're underwater. Okay, you're back.
No.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
No.
Do you think it'd be easier? Do you think it's your camera maybe?
If you want, you can change the camera. Put on
No, it's up to you. It's up to you. I was just asking maybe it's the camera that's fucking up, not the mic, but I guess the audio is also going out cuz it's all freezing for me.
Now it's telling me it's the internet. So
Gotcha.
if you want,
Gotcha. That's not going to help at all then. That's not going to help at all then.
If
No
you
worries.
want, board and then
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
We'll work with what we got. But I guess the final portion of this arc is pretty much before we get into the Falling Devil arc, so we can transition to that. It is nice that we get a very much mature Denji, which sometimes a lot of people argue has gone and went. I still think Denji's pretty mature, but when they do, because I agree with you, where Asa buying the aquarium was a really cool way for her to use Yoru's power. I think it is a big step for her character. But I also really think a big step for Denji's character is when Asa says that she'll do whatever Denji wants if he helps her. And she's like, so what do you want? And Denji, out of all the fucking things that could be asked out of a Denji brain, he goes, oh, I would just like to go on a second date. Which I think is nice. And I do think it's a perfect transition into Denji's next stump or obstacle that he realizes he's going to run into in his ordinary life, which is, Asa shows up at his house. Which is funny because Asa has that whole thing where she gets in her head because Yoru tries to turn Denji into a weapon after the aquarium and it fails. And Asa believes that, it's because he doesn't actually like me and he's playing me. And so they go on the second date and she's just a bitch to him. When Denji doesn't deserve that. Denji's just a good guy. He's just trying to make it. And, of course, this starts the trend of Yoru, assaulting my man. He goes, the one rule with me is we can't kiss. And then she goes, okay, bet. And then they make out. And then Nayuta fucking shoots the chain, and that's immediately starts the problem in Denji's trauma where, hey, I want to be Chainsaw Man because I want to get laid, and I can't get laid because you're gonna cock block me every single time. And so it's interesting that we do begin to see the ordinary life that Denji seeks, the ordinary life that Denji thinks he wants, is also getting in the way of him wanting to live the extravagant life of being Chainsaw Man, the superhero devil hunter that gets all the recognition and all the love and all the care. And it's like we do get the very first inkling of what Yoshida eventually ends up telling him in Chainsaw Man Church, which is, dude, you can't live both lives. You have to choose one, and I highly recommend you choose the ordinary life. But we can get into that later. But yeah, the whole reintroduction of Nayuta, especially after the last time we've seen her, I think was in the end of part 1 when she gets mentioned and brought up. So yeah, I think that she has the very minuscule powers to use her chains and everything like that. She can't outright control everybody, and she's not as strong as Makima, which we do end up seeing later in the Falling Devil arc. But I still think her coming back at the end of this arc was very nice. You're frozen. We can't hear you if you're talking.
Hello? I'm here.
Oh,
I'm,
you're kind of
I'm
going in and
here.
out.
Going in and out. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe try closing and opening Discord again.
All right. I will be back.
Yeah. We'll give it a shot. What's up, chat? You guys are just stuck with me now. How's everyone doing? Hope everyone's living the absolute dream. Hit that like button if you have not already. It helps the channel way more than you know. We're going to get these technical difficulties figured out as quickly as we can and be moving right into the Falling Devil arc. Hope you guys are having a beautiful Monday night. Love you all. Love you all so much. Hello, there's his beautiful face. All right, I think we might be a little bit better now.
Am I here? I hope it worked. Dude, I'm telling you, it's the Rain Devil, man. The Rain Devil just
I believe you. It's the same Typhoon Devil that killed Asa's mom. It's crazy,
dude,
bro.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you.
He doesn't want us getting the propaganda out. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't know if you had a response to that.
Before I lose the connection. So the first 10 seconds, I want to say I forgot that Nayuta was introduced during the second half of this arc. And the way she was introduced with like the chains and the dogs, it's like, oh man, that opening panel was just so magnificent for me. And I'm like, let's see this little Makima 2.0 kind of wreak havoc, but she's still her own character. And I even see, and there's even moments when you see like their apartment, how they're just like this sibling love going on, and Denji truly caring about her, that even though this is another Control Devil potentially in the making, that she's grounded somewhat because of Denji's teachings and the affection that he has for her, as the sibling. And I think it's like really beautiful to be like, okay, she's a child, and there's a lot of theories early on of like, she might lose control, and maybe that is just a byproduct of being what do you call it, like a reincarnation of of the Control Devil, right? But that inevitably she will choose the right side, which is the thing that Kishibe and even Pochita told Denji, right? Like, if you give this Control Devil lots of hugs and kisses and affection, she will turn out to be okay, so even there's some manipulation of like, yo, who's this other girl with that's messing with Denji, right? It really is done in this fun and creative way where I want to see this banter continue.
So. You actually brought up something that I'm glad that you did, and I'm glad that we actually get to, is that the introduction of Nayuta and Denji's like sibling almost like relationship is like it is a beautiful thing, especially because we learn in this arc, because I think everything starts, the reason why Asa picks Denji as her target to make a weapon is because she says that, she doesn't want to make a cat a weapon because a cat is too precious, but so she'd rather make a human a weapon, but she can't make a human a weapon right now because she's not strong enough. So it has to be someone in between a cat and in between a human. She views Denji as less of a person because she sees him do the thing where so funny, like rereading this and seeing this, where he does the thing where he's taking cigarette butts out of the trash and then making new cigarettes and then selling them to homeless people and telling them that they're like premium American cigarettes. And she's like, what a scumbag. She's like, fuck this guy, let's turn him into a weapon. And like, yes, what a scummy thing to do. But like, when they get to know each other in the dating Denji arc in the Eternity Devil's Trap, they're like, Denji reveals that, hey, like, I only do fucked up shit like that because I'm trying to help take care of my sister, and I want her to I think she's smart enough to go to college, and I want to get her I want to make a good life for her. And that's when Asa opens up to him. So like, you see like the growing up that Denji has done, where like, sure, Denji is still willing to be sat on like a chair for girls. He's still willing to debase himself and deplore himself, but he does still have priorities. He does still understand like he has responsibilities in this life that he has. And even to the point that they make like that cute little sibling like promise, I think, because Nayuta is like, hey, that girl can't come back here. Like, you can't be friends with her. And he's like, well, what the fuck is the point of living if you're just gonna block me? And she even says, like, yes, like you said, like, it's a little control devil. It's almost like a little manipulative. She can't even. It's almost like she can't help it. But you can see like the quote unquote manipulation is more out of care for her older brother than it is
Mhm.
out of like, I need to be in charge of this person's life. It's like, hey, Denji, every woman you've ever met and liked has tried to kill you before. It's
Yeah.
probably a good idea that this weird person that did this weird shit to you, you just cut them off and you ignore them. Um, and then I think, I don't remember what they promised, but basically he's like, all right, you're right, I agree, because I forget what they exactly promised, but it is like you said. I'm glad that you mentioned the introduction of their sibling relationship, because it is something that
Mhm.
Fujimoto really does really, really well, in such a
Mhm.
short amount of time of her just coming back into the mix.
Yeah, because even though her ulterior motive is like, no, Denji's mine and I want no women to get with him, right? She also has this like spidey sense of knowing, like, wait, this person specifically,
Yeah,
there's something way off with this, right? So it only reinforces her argument of like, look, Denji, and let's be real, every person who tried to get with you have tried to kill you. And even though you don't like hearing what I have to say, this person especially, I know is trouble, right?
hmm,
And it's pretty cool where you're like, yo, I want to see this too. This sibling rivalry here too of like, no, no, no. This control devil knows that this war horseman is problematic, you know? So I
exactly.
like how they kind of tease that as well. So yeah.
So I guess, what overall would your ranking of this arc be if you had to say? Would you put it as an A on the Justice Devil, or do you think with the slower portions of it, in the Eternity Devil part, do you think
Mhm,
that kind
mhm.
of lowers its ranking a bit?
I think if we're just comparing it to the first arc, I don't think it's as strong.
Hmm.
So, but I don't think it's bad either. I think this is quite literally like a solid B to me.
I completely agree with you. I think B
Yeah.
is like the best place to put it. Like, and like you said, like, it's almost as if it's like mostly a transitionary phase to get us into the Falling Devil anyway. And that's why a lot of the second half of the conversation we've had is honestly like mostly like the transition and the beginning portion of the next arc, because it kind of just flows perfectly into it with, going into Yoshida and Fami, now that they've had that glaring match, kind of meeting and talking about, what are you doing in the world, what are your
Mhm.
goals, what is the whole deal with this prophecy thing. We got the introduction of Nayuta and Denji's relationship, and how that's kind of affecting Denji a little bit. Like, there are a lot of things in this arc that, past the Eternity Devil side, lead us into the future of Chainsaw Man for sure.
Mhm.
And I do like, and again, I do like the Eternity Devil portion, even though it is slower because of the Asa Denji relationship. So I think B is best. B is best. Not as good as A, not as fast paced, much slower,
Yeah.
but still good.
Yeah.
That being said, Falling Devil, we've kind of already talked about, like I said, the very beginning portion up until at least like the Falling Devil shows up. Like, do you have any
Mhm.
kind of thoughts on like, Yoshida and Fami's first discussion about like the prophecy, and like how they both kind of want the Death Devil to not show up or be stopped, but
Mhm.
also they both kind of want to approach it in different ways. Like, we know, like, public safety is keep Chainsaw Man out of the picture. Fami is put Chainsaw Man in the picture. Like, or do you have
Mhm.
any thoughts about that before we like get right into, Falling Devil stuff?
Dude, no, I honestly can't wait to talk about this
Yeah.
arc. I think because what you're saying is like quite literally like the beginning of us now knowing this is what the story is all about. This Nostradamus prophecy is fucking one of the craziest things he could have done.
Yeah.
And now we are seeing the real fucking chaos that everyone adored in part 1 happen right here, right? You know, oh god, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll let you get to it.
No,
But
go ahead.
yes,
Go.
like
No, gut it all out,
okay,
please.
okay,
Cause I'll just
because
go off of what you said.
yeah, 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 because like we're people even to this day, the Darkness Devil was, dude, I get goosebumps thinking about it. It's so fucking creepy, so overpowered, and we learn about primal
Iconic.
fears. as he's being introduced, like, it was like Quan Chi's girlfriends that are like, look, like there's fucking powerful devils here and there, and the gun devil, like, you guys thought the gun devil was something you gotta be scared of? No, no, no. This motherfucker, you need to look out for him. Guess what? Primal fears have never died once. And now here we are already. Get ready for the second one. And the introduction of the falling devil did not disappoint. And
Yes.
even to this day, I use this like panel of like, remember when everyone thought that there's this one girl in the apartment complex before all these people were falling? They're like, oh my God, there's the death devil. There's the death devil. Even I was on that train of like, this is the death devil. And it wasn't. It was just a random passerby. But I
Mhm.
loved how the community ran with it. This was, I think, the most fun the community had
Yes.
with Chainsaw Man in the longest time. And dude, Chef Mommy did not disappoint. And even the homages that Fujimoto did with the movie The Menu, I think that's what it's called, right? Like if you saw that movie and read this arc, all the references from the falling devil clapping her hands to doing her crazy diabolical mission to inevitably consume Yoru and Denji for the sake of Fami, right? This is the peak now of like, oh shit, dude, Fami is someone we have to look out for, to even the cameo appearance of fake Chainsaw Man coming in to say
Yeah.
like, look, Denji, this is the only thing I can do for you. Just survive and get out of this situation. Dude, this was the peak of Chainsaw Man Part 2, and it's crazy how excited I get to never really know what it is later. Fuck, it like hurts to think about. But this moment was peak, 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 peak. I loved everything about this arc. I love how formidable the Falling Devil was, because like she's someone that was totally different from the Darkness Devil, but
Yes.
yet you were still scared of this person because you knew it was a primal fear. You're like, yo, maybe she's a bit lackadaisical. She's a little bit nonchalant with how she goes about her methods, but when Denji pissed her off, you knew that she was pissed off, and she's like, okay, I'm tired of this shit. Even to the reveal of knowing that big blob monster that people thought, like, dude, all the speculation of like, this is going to be a blob that's going to be consumed or turn into a fucking cocoon to become this
Yeah.
butterfly to, dude, there's so many crazy shit. And then you realize, no, this was the Justice Devil, and this is why this big blob used a hammer, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
holy shit. So then who's the contract that Yuko made? There were just so many things happening. And this, I mean, look, spoilers, I think this was the only S tier arc in Chainsaw Man Part 2. It was 11 chapters that, just like the Bomb Devil arc in Part 1, it had a beginning, a middle, an end.
Hmm.
And I really felt for Asa's character too. Like, we didn't even get into the trauma stuff with Asa. We're like, dude, I was in Asa's shoes in that arc, and I'm like, fuck. I don't know how she gets over this hump. Like the character, like the mental gymnastics she had to do, where
Hmm.
Denji ends up grabbing, holding her hand and says like, hey, I went through this hell. Let me tell you, it is worth it on the other side, but you gotta fucking want it. I'm like, dude, chef's kiss. No
Yes.
pun intended there, right? Like, dude, this perfect. I love this arc. Everything about this arc was fucking fantastic.
I completely agree with you. I think this definitely was, at least so far, the peak of Chainsaw Man Part 2, without a doubt. I think there is a reason why you'll see the constant sentiment of people being like, this is the last arc that I tuned into. Like, this is the arc where it fell off for me. Like, even if you don't believe that, like, I can personally still understand why people feel this way, because this arc was that good. I remember the moment when Fujimoto dropped that one of the last chapters, and that whole fucking chapter was nothing but double spreads. Holy shit, of Denji riding that fucking motorcycle with
Motorcycle.
Asa. Like, yes, like you said, I think everything you said about the Falling Devil and the fact that the Darkness Devil in Part 1 set up Primal Fears to be this crazy, insane fucking force that is just impossible to deal with, that not even Makima, of all people, was like even heavily prepared to. I know people to this day still argue with me in my comments that like, oh, she was more than ready, she would have been able to take that Darkness Devil. Like, it was very clear why Makima popped in. She said, let's go. We're all getting the fuck out right now, because even if you believe that she could have won, she was not coming, especially with the contract with she had with the, the president and everything. Like, still at the very least, like, she would have lost. Like, let's just say that half of the population of Japan probably would have been gone by the end of that fight if she'd actually saw it through, if she did survive. The point is,
Mhm.
primal fears are insane. There's a reason why they don't die,
They never
right?
die.
There's a reason why they've never died and they're still in hell. And I think the Falling Devil was such a great way to reintroduce us to primal fears, because, like you said, she's so much different from this force of nature that the Darkness Devil was. Almost, I don't even think the Darkness Devil says dialogue, and if it does, it's like maybe one word, but I like it's literally just a force of nature that like just does nothing but gore. And even just a minuscule of its power in Santa Claus's hands was like insane. um and just seeing the Falling Devil, like you said, like, she has so much personality, she's so much
Yeah,
more lackadaisical. For she's
yeah,
even willing, I think it's great, is like when Denji does first show up and she's like, "Oh, Chainsaw Man." She's like, "Hey, look, you're not on my
yeah,
menu. I don't have
yeah,
beef with you. Like,
mm,
honestly, if you leave me alone, I won't kill a single person more than this. I will take Asa to hell and we'll be done. We don't even have to fight." When, like you said, we know that she could have been more than likely able to take Denji out, and when Denji pisses her off, that is her full intention. Even though she's working for Fami, there's probably reasons why she wouldn't want to kill him anyway. The fact that,
yeah,
like, she's just that not peaceful, but she's that reasonable of like an
yeah,
entity, whereas like the Darkness Devil, you couldn't even converse with it, it was on site death. This one was like, "Hey, you know what, you're not even an enemy to me, I don't have problems with you, like, I won't even cause any more problems, let me do what I gotta do and I'll leave."
mhm,
To the
mhm,
point where all she cared about was making good food for the denizens of hell that she was able to feed. And I think she even gets pissed at the Justice Devil specifically, because at the end of this all, the Justice Devil ends up throwing up Denji and Asa, and she goes, "You fucking motherfucker, I made that for you, and you're gonna fucking..." And like you said, we can see why she's a primal fear. We see her release that power.
yeah.
But just the way that she holds herself differently to the Darkness Devil, I think, is what makes her so interesting and why people love her so much, regardless of the fact, like you said, that she is Chef Mommy as well. I think there is a lot of things that you can love about her character and her as a presence, almost. And I like, if you have anything else to add to that, definitely feel free, because I want to get into Asa and Denji's mental struggles in this arc as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think just the kickoff to who we were about to see in this arc, being
Hmm.
Chef Mommy, was the dialogue where, now, this is when I still thought like Yoshida was just still like a badass, like talking to the family. And then in real time, us seeing like what's happening with the apartment complex of like people like falling one by one,
Hmm.
where Yoshida's like, look, we I don't know if he referenced the future devil. Did he say something about the future devil? Like, yeah, the future devil made a contract with these 33 people, blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
So I
The
actually I took it as a note. It's he's public safety did an experiment of 30 convicts making contracts with the future devil to see if the Nostradamus' prophecy was true.
yeah.
23 of them like immediately revealed the apocalypse, and then they died. And
Mhm,
then
mhm,
and then
mhm.
Fami, I think, even after that, is like, "Yeah, the other 7 are gonna die tomorrow, by the way."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was just so much interesting setup at this point, and then, Fami's like, "Okay, and this is the person that's gonna usher the beginning of this prophecy," and it's a fucking primal fear. Like, dude, that's why, like, thinking about this arc again to even its conclusion, I'm like, dude, if this is Fujimoto making it tame with the Falling Devil, who else are we going to see? And although, like, we can talk about the Aging Devil later and how much I actually even appreciate the Aging Devil for its own strengths and weaknesses
Mhm.
being a primal fear, right? Like, just to kick things off with Chef Mommy, I'm like, dude, I am so terrified for the people living in this universe, right? The fact that, keep in mind, this is a nerfed Falling Devil. This
Yeah.
is a nerfed primal fear, and this primal fear changed the fucking gravitational forest of Earth forever because it was like because for a short time that it was brought or that it was summoned thanks to Fami is kind of wild to think about. And then even also knowing too that like dude, she only had one agenda. And it's like, look, we just need the Justice Level to eat Asa. But I was still scared when she was talking to Denji, like, bro, please, like, I got nothing against you, but don't piss me off.
Yeah.
Because when you just see people like floating, I'm just like, oh my God, everyone is caught in her domain expansion, and I don't know how the fuck you get out, right? Like, dude, it was crazy, dude. I don't even know how my dumbass at the time thought, like, bro, like, dude, Denji can definitely take on the falling devil. I was one of these people who said that. I'm like, dude, I don't know what the hell I was smoking back then. But it was just so fun to speculate.
Yeah.
And yeah. I'll let you take it from here about the characterization of Asa and Denji because I think this was again, I am terrified for Asa's character, and because now we have a primal fear psychologically fucking with you, right? Where the darkness devil is like, look, I don't need to say shit because my presence alone is terrifying, right? And you know, you're in my domain where it's just pure darkness, right? The falling devil's like, let me seep into your mind and fuck with you that way and convince you to relinquish your life. I'm like, dude, that is fucking terrifying. That is so terrifying. And for someone as fragile as Asa at that point, she gives in. She gives in. It wasn't until Denji like snaps her out of it. And even she still like hesitates with that thought, but of like, okay, yeah, there is something to live for. You know, it just dude, it's well done. I don't know how much I can praise this arc. I loved everything this arc did, what it presented, what the story could have been going forward. And yeah, man.
I think it's funny that you say that because yeah, I think Asa is like, oh well, like blah 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 blah, like this is it's all meaningless, and Denji even for a moment is like, oh well, when you put it like that, and then they both start fucking flying up in the air, and then it's like it is really funny, like because Fujimoto is able to weave the comedy in like super well, like personally, like I think he does such a great job. But getting back into what I was saying, like before I move on to Denji and Asa, I definitely want to say, like everything that we're saying, like imagine if it wasn't the falling devil that Fami brought in, and it was, like I said, the aging devil or another a primal fear that was like the darkness devil that really was like, all right, I'm just gonna murder everything that's in sight, and I don't give a fuck. Like the falling devil at least was like, hey, I'm just here for a reason, and I'm not gonna really cause more damage than I need to. It's like and I also love the moment when public safety is like doing their best and damnedest to try and stop her, and like they're so fucking useless against her, and they even break her body, and she just laughs and she goes, "This is awkward." She goes, "You know, like your race of people hasn't even discovered like a weapon that's capable of defeating us yet. You guys know that, right? Like this, you guys are doing this for no reason. Like this is completely pointless for you guys to even try and stop me." Which makes me wonder that if when she says that she's also including nuclear weapons, or if she's omitting them because they no longer exist in this timeline. It's curious. But and again back more importantly on Asa and Denji, I think I really love this arc, and I know a lot of people are, you know, saying like, oh, you know, because I see in the chat like people are like, oh, just a cool arc, which I completely understand that sentiment as well. But for me, like I've been saying a lot, is I love Fujimoto's characters. I love when he puts emphasis into the way that his characters interact and the way that they feel and the way that they react, because I think he captures realism really well in his characters, where like the way that some of his characters react, I'm like, I believe that someone would react this way. I believe that Asa would react this way. I believe that Denji would react this way. I can put myself in this person's shoes. And seeing the flashback of Asa, not just, you know, having Asa having her own survivor's guilt of feeling responsible for her mom's death, and saving the cat, to where we get the flashback of Asa keeping the cat at the orphanage, and then the orphanage mother manipulates Asa into giving away the cat when realistically the orphanage mother just drowned the cat and said, "Oh, it's unfair of you. Everyone here lost their family. You don't
Yeah.
deserve to have this cat. You need to be just like us and have and lose everything." Like it's like holy shit. It's like, yeah, you know what, girl? Like I kind of feel you. Fuck it. Like it's like you really in this moment in your life, like what do you have to live for? You're possessed by the war devil. You're basically hoping that you can do whatever she wants because you just want her to go away. That's literally at this point the only reason that she's even helping Yoru is because she knows that once she helps Yoru kill Chainsaw Man, Yoru's going to leave. Um and it's and it really bleeds into their interactions in this arc specifically, and that's why I love it, because as Asa continues to fall into her depression and into her tendencies to just fall as the falling devil wants her to, um Yoru is constantly trying to save Asa, because obviously if Asa ends up in hell, so does Yoru. But like so Yoru's screaming at Asa, literally like she's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" She goes, get a grip," and she starts cutting Asa to like get Asa to focus on the pain. And even though she does that, it works the first time. She stops from falling, and then she tries it again, and then Yoru is like, "Why are you still falling? Are you scared of me?" And like she's like, "Why are you scared of me, you fucking idiot?" And Asa's like, "Why wouldn't I be scared of you?" She goes, "You're a devil that is just currently possessing my brain." She goes, "You have never been nice to me. You have never given me any reason or inkling to think that you are doing this to help me in any way, and now you're just hurting me." She's like it, and I love, like, not that Yoru necessarily like quote unquote cares, but you do see Yoru, because we know that as over the course of the story, Yoru's devil brain is slowly fluctuating with Asa's human brain, and their emotions are kind of dwindling, and Yoru is slowly becoming more and more humanized over the course of the series, whether she wants to believe it or doubt it or not. Um,
Mhm.
and you see her reaction almost to like Asa being like, you I'm scared. Yes, I'm scared of you. I'm terrified of you. And she's kind of like, "Oh." She's like, it's almost like it's not that she thinks about it too much, but it's almost like for a moment she's like, "I never even really considered your perspective." And it's not that it completely Yoru changes after this, right? Like it's not like it's like Yoru realizes and becomes a better person because of this. But I love that, like, in this moment Yoru realizes that she's like, "Okay, maybe I need to take a different approach. Like maybe I do need to, handle this a different way." And I know that this doesn't happen necessarily yet, but I love that after this, we kind of do see Yoru and Asa after this build a little bit more of a relationship and more of kind of like an understanding and a trust, especially that we get like in the, not to skip ahead too much, but in the Aging Devil, to the point that like they're in that bathtub scene together and they're like, Yoru is literally like, "Hey, like I have my children that I'm trying to see." Like Yoru's actually opening up to Asa, and like they're actually starting to have an actual unique kind of relationship as opposed to Yoru's just possessing her. And I think like this is the moment where they're finally forced to confront that. And I love that side of Asa's mental struggle. Not that it talks much about like her whole side of things, but I do love the Yoru Asa dynamic. It's something that's it's one of my favorite parts of part two. So it's why I love the Falling Devil arc a lot.
Yeah, dude. Wow, I completely forgot the whole backstory with like the cat in the foster home. Oh my god, dude. That just only adds to how much I actually enjoy it because it's just so fucked. Like Asa's backstory is so tragic. And I'm like, oh my god, we got someone who has it just as bad as Denji in a
Mm-hmm.
different way, right? And it's just like, oh my god, this is brutal. Um, Going on the symbiotic relationship that Asa and Yoru have now, right? You're right. I think this is the beginning. Even if Yoru, you can tell that, like, oh shit, I've been handling this Asa situation a bit wrong. I think she also knew too that, like, we cannot fuck with the primal fear. So I have to calm her down as
Yes.
fast as I can in real time. And I think that is much easier said than done, knowing how fearsome the falling devil is, right? Like the war devil's like, oh shit, this is the falling devil. I'm like, okay, we need to, like, I have to calm her down right now, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
I love that
yeah,
little
there's so
moment that she has real quick when she's like, "What the fuck is it? Is it gravity? Is it whatever? Is it? oh
Yeah.
fuck, it's falling. Why the fuck
Yeah.
is she here? What's going on? Like she's like instantly like, oh, this is serious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I feel like too, that was just like in real time, like Fujimoto saying, like, boys, like, yeah, this Nostradamus prophecy. If you think the Falling Devil's gonna be fucking crazy, get ready for what I have in store. And again, I don't want to think about where we are with Chainsaw Man Part 2, but just knowing that this was the beginning of what I thought was going to be fucking just more of a high, I'm like, give
Yeah.
this to me. Give me more of this shit. And yeah, man. Like you said, I remember like there was like 2 weeks off because like Fujimoto said like, yeah, I just wanted to draw really high detailed buildings getting fucked up because like I just had to like draw the carnage of like what was being involved here. And you're like, dude, this is so good. All of these double page spreads is so good. And again, I cannot stress this enough. If you guys on chat have not seen the movie The Menu, you have to watch that movie and then read this arc because like the appreciation and just nods from those little subtle things and see how Fujimoto translates it in his own way with the falling devil. I think it's just so done like masterfully. I think it's just such a cool way of like how he's like, okay, let me incorporate as much of the menu as I can in this particular arc into the Falling Devil's personality. It's it really is like just a fun thing, right? Like there's just more enjoyment I think I get recollecting this arc because of that movie.
Yeah, hell yeah. I have to see that movie. I've had it recommended to me so many times. I have to check it out.
Yeah.
I know it's supposed to be really good.
Mhm.
Um
Yeah. But yeah,
I
man, I don't know. Do you have any closing thoughts you want to say with this arc?
Yeah, I guess the last thing that I like is yeah, so the whole mental trauma. I do love mental trauma side of things. Like I said, Asa and Denji short moment where Denji saves her. I do love how that eventually does get paralleled in the aging arc where it ends up being the other way around. And I do just love how Denji, when he's fighting the Falling Devil and when Falling Devil does the same trick on him and he starts to go through his trauma, like she's like, all right, I figured that out. And then he immediately just starts fighting her again. And she's like, what the fuck? And he goes, yeah, rule of thumb, I just fucking cut through my brain if anyone starts mentally attacking me. And I'm like, bro, like this is peak Denji. Like this is just like, I love you. Like this is just so fucking ridiculous. And I believe that you would do something like this.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and the last thing I do want to focus on before we rank this, because I imagine this is going to be an S rank for both of us. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, is I do love the callback to Nayuta not being a full control devil, where she when she saves them from the Justice Devil, because she actually forces the Justice Devil to throw them up. And it gets revealed after that when Fami takes the Falling Devil back, she goes, oh, I didn't think you had that power, enough power to do that. And she goes, oh, well, I wasn't able to control the devil, but I was able to at least make it think that Denji and Asa tasted like shit. So it would throw them up, which
Yeah.
is the only reason they lived. And I like that Nayuta is willing to like play that in the background, right? Because I don't even think she tells Denji is like, Denji, you owe me one for doing this. Like, I think like,
Right.
because they also get kidnapped by public safety right after this, so maybe they just didn't have
Mhm.
time to, there wasn't time for it to be done. But I do like that it does show that even in the background, Nayuta is looking out for Denji. Like
Yeah.
she's not, she may want to change him and control him in certain ways, but it's what she views as the best way and not Makima's best way, as in she gets what she wants and she has a new dog, as in this is my older brother, I want the best for him, even if I have to change a couple things or control a couple things in the way to get that result.
Yeah.
And then we get Fami asking Nayuta to join her, and Nayuta's like, absolutely not. I have school. Fuck that shit. Which
Yeah.
leads
Yeah.
perfectly into the next Chainsaw Man Church arc. So yeah, I mean, I really, really enjoy this arc. I completely agree with you on everything. I think it's awesome. And then yeah, unless you had anything to add to what I said, we can move right into Chainsaw Man Church.
No, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So we knew in the beginning of the arc they were talking about the prophecy, and then, like you said, the reveal of Naito swooping in with the save, and then Fami talking to her and be like, "Hey, sis, you know what? Like, we got to take our fucking bigger sister out, Death." And you're like, "There we go. Now it's complete. Now we got the four fucking pieces that we wanted. The theory a lot of people called on part one. Now it's like definitive." and this is who the final boss is supposedly, right? There could be someone above death, we don't know, but like I love knowing that like who is this person, and despite how we may feel post Falling Devil arc, I think this is still one of the most anticipated things yet, right? Like, how is this Death Devil going to look like? Who, like, yeah, I'm so excited,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I think he won't disappoint. Like, I'm really excited to know, like, holy shit, here's Death,
I've loved
So
seeing the fan arts of the what the Death Devil might look like so far, and it really is like you said, like there's so much speculation of what it could look like, and that's one thing that Fujimoto does well is drawing like these crazy fucking monsters. Um, I had the perfect transition that I was gonna say, and I completely forgot about it. Either way, so getting into the Chainsaw Man Church.
mm,
It starts right off with, of course, Nayuta being in school, Asa where she is in the hospital after the Falling Devil, Denji where he is after the Falling Devil, everything like that. Um, I remember what I was just gonna say. Going over the arcs like this, you really start to get a picture painted for you of how much of the story has just been plotted by Fami. Like so far, like almost every portion of the every arc that we've talked about is all orchestrated by Fami in some way, shape, or form. Um, the Justice Devil we know was never the Justice Devil; it was the Fire Devil, and we know the Fire Devil is working directly with Fami and the Chainsaw Man Church. The Falling Devil, I'm sorry, I keep saying Falling Devil. The Eternity Devil, dating Denji right by Fami. Falling Devil was summoned by Fami, and we know going into the Chainsaw Man Church that again, this is all led by Fami. She is confirmed to be the brains of the Chainsaw Man Church, while Haruka is the face. Um, and even realistically, if you think about it, going into the Aging Devil, she's the one that gets everyone together to be in that big fight. So it's interesting to me. Like I never really realized that going through until now. We've overviewed everything. Like Fami really is mostly, as far as it goes, we have the Death Devil, but she's mostly the main antagonist.
yeah, yeah.
Which again, it really does make it crazy that we're all sitting together having chocolate cake at the end of this and having no plot integral discussions whatsoever. Where we are, but either way. I like that you did kind of talk about this a little bit in the Fallen Devil, but the fact that the Falling Devil caused gravitational issues across the entire globe is a very big thing in this arc, because it kind of sets the beginning of the Chainsaw Man Church and everything into motion, right? Because the world is in disarray. People don't trust their governments. They're not trusting public safety. They're at constant threat of devils. The devils are getting worse. They're appearing so often that Denji and Yoshida can't even go to a movie because the movie theater was just evacuated because the devil broke in and they had to kill the devil. The devil hunters are killing more and more devils, and it is gearing more and more up that the Death Devil is arriving. It's almost like the prophecy and the apocalypse is slowly on its way, and it's slowly it's uncontainable now. Before it was just beginning, but now after the Falling Devil, like Fam even said, like this is beginning now. This is going to be the end of everything.
Mhm.
And the one thing I will say is this is where the really slow portion of Chainsaw Man really begins, because after, we get the introduction of everybody, we also, get the we get the fact that Fami's planning all of this. Denji wakes up in Yoshida's care. We get the whole reveal that public safety has been trying to keep Chainsaw Man out of the picture. And this is where we get the big ultimatum for Yoshida, and the big reveal that, hey, if you transform into Chainsaw Man again, we're going to take you out at the full step of the word, and you're just going to be, as we see later, in boxes in detention center. Or you can live your ordinary life and we won't touch you. But you are the reason we believe that you are causing all of this chaos. You doing everything you're doing is making things worse for us. Stay out of the picture. And I guess as far as a setup goes, I personally like it. Again, I think it harps on trauma we've already seen Denji have with having to choose between his two lives. And also at the same time, like showing that like public safety and the organizations and the government are pretty much unable to really stop this emerging devil threat, and they are getting desperate as all hell to stop it any way they can. So I think as a setup, this arc works well. But I would love for you to kind of go into that, add off of that, and kind of maybe even mention why you think it kind of starts to fall apart.
Yeah. Quickly, let me say the Typhoon Devil is kind of strong right now. So if I go in and out, I'm telling you guys right now, I'm so sorry. It's not me, it's the Typhoon Devil. Okay. So let me get that out
You
of the
are
way just
good,
in case
brother.
I'm lost. Um, but to go off of what you said, yeah, this is I like Fujimoto reinforcing the idea of, the
Up, just cut out. Damn. Oh, oh,
no.
you're good. You're good. You're good. It didn't cut.
I'm
It
good,
cut
I'm
out for
good, I'm
two
good.
seconds. You're good. Go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say, this is the point where we superhero Marvel DC story. This is the problem with being a you here's the pros and cons, right? Your loved ones are forever going to have problems. You will always have problems. There are people who are going to pursue you, and if you want to live a normal life, there's no such thing. So you either have to be a turtle in hiding for the rest of your life, or if you choose to be this hero and you want to be adored by the fans like you were in the beginning of the story, then there's going to be major repercussions. And unfortunately, since the Falling Devil arc, now we are in this position where we are not up for negotiations, Denji. And
Oh, we lost you. We lost you. Uh-oh. You might be gone for good this time.
hold on, hold on.
Oh, oh.
I'm here. I'm here. Dude, I see the bar. I see the bar in Discord going red and green, red and green. How about now? Can you guys hear
Yeah, you're
me?
perfect now. You're perfect now.
Okay, okay. I was trying to compare Denji to Captain America for a horrible analogy. Just stay with me for a second. It's like if he was somewhat intelligent and had more autonomy to say, I think there could have been something interesting here. But because Denji never really been truly developed, right? Like any normal kid would. He's in this position where it's like, I hate how you are giving me these ultimatums, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like now I either have to be this turtle in hiding, or if I choose to live the life that I want to live, now my loved ones and everything I care about is at risk. And this is the problem that we saw him presented in part one, where he inevitably or he essentially breaks down to Kishibe and is like, dude, this sucks, but like, guess what? I want to have girlfriends, I want to have sex, and I want to be Chainsaw Man first and foremost. I want all of this. I want this life, whatever of being Chainsaw Man could present, right? So when it's presented here again, but now Yoshida is telling him,
Ooh, kind of cut out.
anymore.
Cutting out a little bit.
I'm back. I'm back. I'm
Okay,
back.
you're
Am I
back.
back? Oh, God, I'm screwed up with this internet thing.
It's all good,
What
brother.
was I saying? Oh no, just for Yoshida to say like, hey, like you have these ultimatums, and then seeing this interesting thing of like Fami running the host show, and even now like she's the ringleader again with this Chainsaw Man church arc, and convincing people to be converted into this Chainsaw Man philosophy and ideology. Now there's like an interesting side that Denji could dabble with. Now, just like any crazy religious cult, it's not going to end well. But for someone like Denji to be like, well, we hear what you guys have to say, and it's being introduced through another
Oh,
running off the cusp of the Falling Devil arc. So it's like, he said,
you're kind of going in and out, brother, man. Oh no.
it keeps it.
Oh, nope.
It's red. It's red. Oh my god.
I think
It's
you're
red.
back now, but I don't know how long you'll last for.
Dude. Okay. Let me reconnect.
Okay,
Let me close.
gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah. All right.
Apologies, everybody. I hope everyone's still having a beautiful, beautiful night. Thank you all so much for the donos. Thank you, China Doll, for the 10 gifted memberships. I sincerely appreciate you. Thank you, Myers, for the 5 gifted memberships. You guys are great, and I sincerely appreciate the support. Thank you to everyone that's been out here. I appreciate you guys tuning in, hanging out with me and Miles here. And I hope you guys leave a like button. Hit that like button, smash it. All right, okay. We're still kind of cutting in and out, but we're a little bit better now. Oh, we're back to it. I think. I think you're good.
Oh, oh, yeah. God, I hate this meter. So
Oh, Yeah, now your camera is like a couple seconds behind. I wonder if it
Well,
is because your internet's using much more bandwidth streaming the camera than it would be if you were just coming in audio wise. So I went, oh, maybe that helps. Maybe switching the camera helps.
okay, I'm gonna switch the camera. We'll see if this ends up turning. Okay, I'm just looking at my tops. So let me refresh this. Uh, it's red on my end. Is this any better?
The video, no, it's still frozen. You coming in a little bit better audio wise, but it's still frozen.
Check, check. Maybe let me just the camera. Let me see.
Yeah, I wonder because, like I said, I wonder if sending because you're sending that high definition video. I wonder if the reducing the bandwidth might help.
Yeah. So it's oh, no, it's green.
It's a little funky.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's the Typhoon Devil, man. Typhoon Devil
Sheesh.
not negotiating here with me right now. Check, check, check.
You're coming in a little bit. You're
I'm
coming in
coming
a
in.
little
I'm
bit fine
coming
right
in.
now.
I'm coming in.
Tiberius said you're too
Oh,
handsome.
dude. Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, you're coming in pretty clear
Okay.
now. You can go ahead,
You're
try.
coming in. Okay, okay. Let me before I just toss it to you. I was gonna say I agree with what you said. We are presented with interesting points of where we go post Falling Devil arc. Denji's put in this weird ultimatum, kind of like a Civil War Marvel story, right? Where it's like, hey, there's repercussions to your actions, and now you have to choose, but we're not really giving you an option. And now there's also this introduction of like the reappearance of the weapons, which I think is really nice, considering that like half of them is working for Fami, and we're like, what's the deal with that, right? So yeah, it's a for karaoke.
Oh, you're kind of
On
going.
that,
Oh, there we go.
oh, am I good?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. I'm just to you. But
You're all
I
good,
agree
brother.
with
You're all
you,
good,
man.
brother.
The beginning where things start slowing. I think this is you. It goes away, and then it's completely in a different. And this is, I think, where people feel mixed about it.
Yeah. So yeah, everything you said, 110%. Like the reintroduction of the weapon devils really does add a lot of impact to the story because it's like, oh god, these guys are now back who were previously controlled by Makima, and now they are Chainsaw Man fanatics, and they're working for the Chainsaw Man Church. They're working with for Fami, so they're just working for another aspect of the Four Horsemen, and they are doing some of the absolutely craziest shit. And with if the Falling Devil was the start of everything, Chainsaw Man Church is really where Fami begins to make some of the biggest moves possible. Because not just do we get the big reveal that, of course, the Justice Devil was never really the Justice Devil. It was always the Fire Devil that people were making contracts with. The Fire Devil, very powerful devil, that has just been getting stronger and stronger. And War has also been getting stronger. Yoru has also been getting a lot stronger because even Yoru mentions in this moment that she can feel that war is coming. She can understand because the Falling Devil, by doing everything it did to the globe, it has basically ruined global economy, has caused mass poverty everywhere with all of the emergencies and everything going on. And Yoru knows better than anyone that in states of the world like this, war is always inevitable. And I think like I said, the one thing that is really great about this arc is it really is such a great setup to everything else that is to come. It really is just something that it does seem a little jarring compared to the Falling Devil based off of everything that happens and how quick it is, because there are multiple time skips in this arc that aren't really clear. Like Nayuta is in school and she gets captured by public safety guards, and then Denji and Nayuta are released and able to go off on their own thing after Yoshida gives them the ultimatum, and Denji basically just tells him to shove it. But after that, like, then we run into the whole Chainsaw Man Church. They're going on public appearances. They have the fake Chainsaw Man human that they're having as a stand-in for Denji, so that way no devils attack, Denji specifically, even though his identity is revealed, because we have the problems that the International Assassins arc showed us, where if Denji's identity does get revealed, a lot of people are probably going to either want to capture Chainsaw Man or kill him. So there's a lot of problems. One thing that I think Fujimoto does really well as well in this arc is the protesting and the Chainsaw Man Church being basically a huge reference to Fujimoto's ideas of cults and how they can present problems in the everyday world. Because Yoshida says this as a fact that sure, right now Chainsaw Man Church seems like just a bunch of protests. They're being violent and they're fighting counter protesters, but you have to realize that not only are they amassing numbers very quickly, they're already at 20,000 members. They are all teenagers. They're all impressionable young adults that are about to turn of age to vote. So not only are they all impressionable young adults that are basically amassing in violent mobs of protest, they are only a couple days, months away from all of these, radical cultists getting political influence and being able to vote. So the fact that they are already having such a possible grasp on world politics as a whole, just because such a crazy disaster event like the Falling Devil happened and shook up everybody's faith in public safety and the government, it shows like it personally, when this was coming out, this was like almost freshly either right after COVID or during COVID.
Mhm.
And I wonder if the stark change of a lot of the themes that show up in this arc have anything to do with that. It's just interesting to see like we said, like how the original arcs are very strong. They were very focused. They felt very on a straight line, and we could very much predict everywhere where this arc story was going. And this arc has a lot of the amazing setups. It takes all those aspects of it and even uses them in pretty interesting ways. Um, and then really just kind of goes off the wall on it by going into Denji getting introduced to the Chainsaw Man Church, the Chainsaw Man Church causing all of their crazy, terrorist attacks. They burn Denji's house down and kill his dogs and his pets, and they kidnap Nayuta. And then after all of this, and Denji losing everything from his ordinary life to basically to the point where he doesn't even have an ordinary life to go back to after all of this, Denji even goes through the mental realization that, hey, you know what? Honestly, fuck all that shit. I don't even think I needed that. I think I actually prefer being Chainsaw Man, having nothing to lose and fighting people and just and just being able to do what I want. Um
Mhm.
because again, we also have, even before all of this, we have Denji just going to school, upset that the Chainsaw Man Church is taking his recognition, giving it to Asa, um, which is another weird time skip where Asa ends up being the poster devil child of the Chainsaw Man Church.
Mhm.
We've got Denji getting into an altercation where a pro Chainsaw Man kid gets into a fight with the anti Chainsaw Man kid. Just proves Yoshida's point that you can't live both lives. And then we have the Fumiko introduction where she touches his wiener, which is just fucking ridiculous. But yeah, I don't
Mhm.
know if you have any sound bites to add, because I've been kind of yapping for a little bit. But there is a lot in this arc that's good. Like me explaining all the things that are happening in this arc. Generally, I'm like, I like this. This all sounds like a very interesting story. But I guess I'm just missing
Yeah.
why this was a miss for so many people.
When you lay it all out, I'm like, why does this sound good? And it was going somewhere, but then it either falls off or it doesn't land in the way I think Fujimoto wants it to, or especially for me, because when you present the ideology of like, oh yeah, like these kids, they're about to be 18, they're gonna have more political sway in what happens in this world. I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be like a different parallel and maybe even expanded upon on what Makima did to Denji in part one, where it's like, hey, we got these people who adore you, but now that's actually going to be used to your detriment. But now we're going to get the parallel to this in a different way, where now the people who were loving and cheering you in the beginning of part two is now going to be turned against you in a weird, twisted way. But it's also going to influence the world, right? Post the gravitational shifts that the Falling Devil has made. And I'm like, oh shit, like we're going political here. And we're doing this impressionable kids, or like how kids can be impressionable by these radical ideas, right? Of, this is the extreme way, or this is what happens when someone loves this figure like Chainsaw Man and is twisted and demented, but
And they also
because they're
lose
kids, they
faith in
don't
their
really.
government and their world
Yeah,
organizations, and they feel like they're in trouble. They don't know what to do. They don't know who to trust. And here comes this
yeah,
person who says they have the perfect
yeah.
solution.
Yeah. So them even becoming like a warped pseudo Chainsaw Man, right? The person that they worship, right? Like, I think the idea is actually well executed in that regard. But sadly, again, when we just kind of jump forward to what the current story is, and that's not really expanded or touched upon again, it's a bit of a miss because there was something truly there. So how he touched upon that and how that was actually going somewhere interesting, but then it's like, well, look, I'm just going to present the idea because I just wanted to get it out there, and that's it. I think that's where it becomes a misstep, because you're right. Then we get to that concept and that narrative, and then it's like, okay, but now let's introduce Fumiko, and we bring up like Denji being like,
And let's do more Denji
essay.
trauma.
Yeah, let's do more Denji trauma. And then, we get like the fun karaoke thing, which I think is like, just the randomness of Chainsaw Man, which I actually appreciate. And then we learn more now about Fumiko, and we're like, oh shit, Fumiko's parents were, in that backstory of like Aki versus Denji. And I'm like, oh shit, I kind of like this stuff. And oh, like she's a fan of Chainsaw Man. And although like, she's doing whatever Yoshida ends up telling her to do, right? You can tell she at least convinces me for a while that like, okay, she's kind of doing her own thing, right? Like she's listening to Yoshida, but like she cares about Denji in a different way that we haven't seen, or that I think Denji needed at the time, you know,
Mhm.
uh SA aside, right? So
Tuh.
we get that. And then, we see this whole thing happening now where like we see the other weapons being introduced. And again, I like the introduction of Mary, which is coinciding nicely with these impressionable teenagers becoming these fanatics of Chainsaw Man, right? Even Mary says, I'm a fan of Chainsaw Man. I like what you do. And the other weapons who are like, they're kind of, we don't see much about them, they're just kind of
Mhm.
there in the background. Um, to inevitably just kind of start this war, because we also have the other plot line of like Yoshida telling Denji to back off and do your thing, right? I think this arc just had lots of great ideas, but there was no clear execution, right? Like there's just little things presented here and there. And I think this is where the arc, I can't speak on everyone. I see Crying Man in chat saying the church arc was amazing. Yeah, I think it's good, but I think there's just too many things presented within these 24 chapters that like it just kind of falls flat, because when you get to basically the climax of this arc where like, okay, now we see the pseudo Chainsaw Man being crazy. Fumiko can't really do anything about this situation. Even leading up to the conclusion of like Naita saving Denji, saying like, "Hey, I always cared about you," and then like she's left in the dark, and even to this day, the reveal of like, is Naita alive or is she not alive? It's kind of like, it's presented here because we don't know what's happening. I think that's kind of good, but considering that the Chainsaw Man Church arc, I think, started one way and it ended with that, well, I feel like I was missing something. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what I was missing here, but I'm like, there's something I think if we could have expanded upon, or if we shaved off the concept of the impressionable kids being, these fan religious fanatics for Chainsaw Man, or we just kind of know more of the backstory of like what Fami was truly doing, right? Because I think this is also the arc too, the second half. We're like, okay, I like how we know Fami's the ringleader for a lot of stuff happening, but now we're not really getting her POV into learning more. And I think that's actually what I probably would have appreciated more, if we just got to know what is Fami's true agenda, what is she doing? Because I do believe her that she wants to save humanity, but she's going about it her own different way. And we also know it conflicts with what public safety is doing. And I think that's really interesting. And I think this is why this is the point where like Words Kishibe is just brought a lot in this arc, because now we saw public safety kind of not do anything with the Falling Devil, and this is now where we need, and I think it would have been a nice welcomed addition, where Kishibe is brought into the story to be on Denji's side, because no one's really helping out Denji at this point, and it doesn't make sense to me why Yoshida's representing public safety and telling Denji like these are the only options you have when, again, going towards the end of part one, Kishibe is like, we need you, we need to protect you, and especially Nayata, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that part, like, it hurts. I think this is the part where it hurts the story. Again, this is not me saying, oh, I just want Kishibe to for the sake of him being a fan favorite. It's like, no, no, no. I think Kishibe can explain a lot of stuff for us and keep the story grounded in where I need it to go, because where it ends up going in the second half of this arc, I'm like, you're like, the whole thing with Fumiko now is like, okay, that's a thing, and I kind of see where that's going, but like, what about this idea you brought to us? And even leading up to Yoshida fighting Yoru, and then even the big mic drop of like, oh yeah, this was the Fire Devil all along, and I'm like, oh shit, like that, those are cool points, right? Like the Fire Devil now made a contract with 300,000 people worldwide, and it's fucking OP. I'm like, this is really cool, but why did it take so many chapters to get to this conclusion when I felt like everything else was kind of like up and down? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No,
Yeah.
100%. It does. It does completely. It overall, like I think it genuinely it seems very aimless. It seems like great foundation, great ideas. And
Mhm.
overall, where it kind of falls apart is like the execution almost, where it seems like there's so much going on that it's not really focused enough. And what Fujimoto chooses to focus on aren't the highlights that he's introduced into the series. Like we kind of said, like Fujimoto introduces all these amazing concepts, the Chainsaw Man Church, everything going on, and then what do we spend multiple chapters going through and wasting weeks on? Denji in the theater with Fumiko, and then he's getting the karaoke and beating up random people, and then it's like it almost and then what? And then next thing he knows, the weapon devils are involved, and next thing he knows, he's being talked to by Fumiko, and the weapon devils are committing terrorism. It's almost like it's almost like Denji's characterization and the plot separated almost, right? Like it's almost like we're getting two different stories. We're getting the plot of Chainsaw Man, which is the Chainsaw Man Church, the Death Devil, the predictions, the battle between public safety and Chainsaw Man Church, and the political, ideas of that and everything going on, and then Denji's trauma. It's almost like they're so separate, and we're getting two stories that it's like he's struggling weaving them together almost. And yeah, it is a little off-putting almost, because like you said, when we lay the plot details down, it's like, wow, this actually sounds like this all makes sense. This all kind of follows with the story that Fujimoto has been setting up. Nothing is really different from it seems like everything that we're saying here makes it should follow through. We
Mhm.
even, and like you said, there it's not like there's no good moments either. Like Barum, the flamethrower devil, is a big highlight. Like his characterization,
Yeah.
I think Fujimoto does really well. He's
Yeah.
definitely a big player in this arc, and the scenes that he
Yeah.
does have like are definitely fun, impactful. Denji losing his dogs and pets. Um, Denji threatening to leave Nayuta, but Nayuta not wanting to leave Denji because she, wants to live in a world with him and wants to choose whatever side that he wants, even though she's like, hey, we should pick devils. I want to pick devils. I really
Mhm.
think we should pick
Mhm.
devils. But at the end of the day, she appreciates, because of the love that Denji gave her. It changes the
Ye
decision that she normally would make on her own.
Yeah, yeah,
Ultimately,
yeah,
unfortunately, she dies because of it. But
yeah, yeah, and even to the point of Denji, like, hesitating up until the last second. So even when we see the house burn and, Barum, you're right, God, dude, I just like Joffrey in Game of Thrones, Barum is someone I love to hate. Like, Barum is
yes.
such a nice, welcome antagonist in this story that I didn't know I wanted until
Hmm.
Fujimoto gave it to us here, right? So he was fun to hate, and someone like, oh man, I hate you more than I hated some of these characters from part one. Um, and then like Denji just fighting for the whole time of like, I want to live this normal life. I cannot be Chainsaw Man. And then when the house burns down and he fucking loses it, I'm like, oh shit, pre Black Chainsaw Man, right? Because I think, was it in this arc or was it the following, right? Like in the beginning of the prison arc, slash Aging Devil arc, where we learn about like, oh, there's two different Chainsaw Man, the Black Chainsaw Man and the Red
I
Chainsaw Man,
think
or
Fami
whatever.
introduces that concept in this. I think that's how she gets Asa on Yoru to to join the Chainsaw Man Church originally in this side is because she's like, hey, we can save both Chainsaw Mans. They're actually two different people.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
she tells them whole like that's when
That's
she
right, that's
reveals the
right.
Black Chainsaw,
Mhm.
Red Chainsaw. Yoru
Yeah,
can kill Black Chainsaw, but Asa can still save Red Chainsaw if we separate their hearts, which is like
yeah,
her
yeah.
point.
Yeah, yeah. So to see that buildup of the house burning down to then Denji facing off against like three weapons and takes down all of them, right? Like he's weakened afterwards, but you're like, oh shit, like, okay, here we go. It's like the execution is just so well done, but where does it falter? Like this is the part where, when I think about it, I'm like, I wonder if this arc may be a little bit more streamlined knowing how the story will essentially end,
I
right?
think
Like
so
I
too.
need
Yeah.
right, like this is the part where it's like, okay, this is where people become split because even when I was reading the week to week, it didn't seem that bad, but now looking at it again, I'm just like, why does this arc again, the ideas and execution seem like it could have worked, but it sounds a bit jarring, right? Like, and then even getting all the weapons, but we're omitting the arguably the fan favorite, Reze, right? It's like, okay, she's gonna be saved and she's gonna be brought later on, and I'm okay with that because you cannot introduce, and I've said this a bajillion times in my streams, no way do you introduce 6 out of the 7 and you omit the most popular one, right? It's like having the Power Rangers without the red one. It's like this is not a thing,
True.
It's like how do you just not have him, right?
I see
And
a lot of
again, if she's
people
not
agreeing with you that Kishibe probably should have showed up too. Yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of misses. Honestly, I hope that we just get a reveal that Kishibe has been like on like defected from public safety and is like doing his own thing in the background, and he just shows up eventually. Fake Chainsaw
Yeah.
Man is Kishibe. That's my new theory. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding,
yeah,
but
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. I will say no. Jokes aside, Kishibe has been like closing the summoning circle, right? Like fucking Full Metal Alchemist style from like death arriving, and that's the only reason I'm convinced why we haven't seen Kishibe because he's been just fucking preventing this destruction himself for the longest time because I refuse to believe anything else on why he hasn't appeared yet.
Yeah. And then like even speaking of Kisame, we get like Quan Chi and Katana Man coming back this chapter, this arc too. So this arc does have a lot of really good things in it. But I do agree with you. I definitely want to reread this arc. I went over it, recapping in too quick, but I really want to sit down and like give it time and see how it
Mhm.
holds up. Like I said, after the series is over and see what once we have the ending and once we know how everything plays out, was this
Mhm.
arc actually as unfocused as it ends up being, if that makes sense, right? Is the end going to add more levity and more perspective to why Fujimoto wrote things the way that he did, which we
Mhm.
can only hope for, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, after everything we've said, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts on this because the arc does split off, which is obviously, Fumiko becomes Diarrhea Woman because she betrays Nayuta. She doesn't save him. Nayuta
Mhm.
gets the mob sicked on her. Unfortunately, we know what happens. And then
Mhm.
Denji gets fully captured by Yoshida Public Safety after he continues to resist them. And this is when they end up, doing the dismemberment of him, which
Mhm.
leads into the Aging Devil arc. So I personally, I think after everything we've said, I'm honestly willing to give this a B still, just
Yeah.
because, again, there's so many good things that we were able to say about it, even though it does kind of
Yeah.
fall short on execution. But go ahead.
No, no, no. I agree. Yeah, I mean, I don't want. I think a C sounds a bit disingenuous, but if I were to be harsh, it's like a C plus. But B is fine. I think it's respectable. Like you're right. I think coming off the high of the S tier Falling Devil and some of the misses that happens in this arc, I don't think it makes it bad. I think now this is the part where the community, as a collective, is saying, okay, this arc is a little messy, but the next arc, if it can kind of bridge it together, I will forgive it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we kind of know how that pans out and only makes it worse, but we don't know that yet. So It's a B.
So
It's the
so
same thing.
you ending on that makes me very interested to get into this next discussion here because I'm very curious because I feel like the Aging Devil arc encompassing the chapters that it does it's a very wide net, right? Because I feel like you can separate the Aging Devil arc into two very distinct separate halves, which is the first half of the Aging Devil arc, where the Aging Devil isn't even, a part
Yeah.
of the story whatsoever, which is Asa and Fami planning to break Denji out of the Devil Detention Center while they are constantly dismembering Denji while he continually regenerates and regenerates and regenerates. I think he regenerates limbs like 27 times before he finally stops.
Mhm.
And then Fami and the core Chainsaw Man Church, which this is the point I think in the story where we really can start throwing the shade at where are these characters' developments? Who even
Yeah.
really are these characters that we're supposed to be following along? And I assume Fujimoto would want us to care about them because based off the way that the Aging Devil arc ends, they
Mhm.
apparently are captured by public safety and being held captive, and Yoshida is threatening to use them as hostages. But which again, we don't know who these characters are. We don't really care about these characters, so I don't know why Fujimoto thinks that we do.
Mhm.
And this is where you can really start to see the cracks, especially in this prison segment, because I feel like, which a lot of people are saying in chat, and personally, this is the lowest point of the Aging Devil arc, at least
Yeah.
until Aging shows up, because things, in my opinion, do get a lot better when that finally happens.
Yep.
But this in between segment of Fami and Asa breaking Denji out of prison, followed by them meeting up with Katana Man and Quan Shi and the Nail Devil, and then Denji, they resurrect Denji, and then everyone wants to fight Denji, but Denji's not ready to fight because he's too depressed, and so they're like, all right, we all need to go as a group and get Denji some sushi, and then Yoru, assaults him, and then there's the whole thing of like, Denji's like, did I like it? Did I not like it? Is this how everyone's first hand job goes? Like, it's like it
Yeah.
really is like a fever dream almost, like going through that segment of the story. And I think this is the most disjointed, most aimless, like everything that we talked about in the Chainsaw Man Church, like
Mhm.
is it's almost like what were we doing
Mhm.
like to get to this
Yeah.
10 chapter segment or whatever, how long the prison until we
Yeah.
get to Aging is. It's
Yeah.
just it's such a weird transition.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Aging when we get to it. I love the Aging Devil
Yeah.
portion.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It
Yeah.
personally, it saved the series in a lot of ways for me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
excited to continue reading it after the
Yeah.
Aging
Yeah.
Devil. But yeah, this transitionary portion here is just oof. This is like the worst part that I fully agree that I understand why people dropped
Yeah.
part two
Yeah.
during this
Yeah.
portion.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let me. God, I tried so hard not to interrupt you while you're fucking rambling. I have to say it right now. I don't care what the fucking wiki says. This whole stuff from the prison to the sushi, leading up to the sushi with the Shinji hands and the aging. I'm sorry, these are two separate arcs. I refuse to believe that you call this the fucking Aging Devil arc, and we don't see aging until the
Yeah.
last third of this
Mhm.
arc. This is no, no, no. I'm gonna let's just fucking pretend that DJ Miles has wrote this story with Fujimoto. Okay, the prison break leading up to the sushi restaurant is its own
It
self-contained
should
thing.
be, definitely.
The narrative fucking video, because I do the Chainsaw Man explained videos. I call it the torture Denji arc. To
Mhm.
me, that makes the most sense. Look, and I'm not saying you don't have to fucking call it that, but I'm saying what happens prior to the sushi restaurant. Denji is dismembered. He is at his lowest point. We're rescuing him. Even when he's rescued, he's still fucking trying to be optimistic. And every time he was trying to be optimistic, life throws these curveballs. We can't find Naiza. We can't even have fucking sushi. We can't even have the brothel, right? Like, because Katana Man is trying to like lift him up, right? He's at his lowest point. No one gives a fuck what Denji has to say, and he is at his absolute lowest point. I refuse to believe what happened within the prison arc to leading up to the sushi is the Aging Devil arc. This makes no fucking sense. I don't know who's running the wiki and the Chainsaw Man fucking wiki. You guys need to fucking change that. These are two completely separate arcs because if you look at because as we were just saying with the Chainsaw Man Church arc, right? As a little discombobulated that arc was, I always knew the church arc, like the stuff happening within the confines of the church and the devil contracts and the kids being impressionable, turning into pseudo Chainsaw Man, that was still always in the back of that particular arc, right? It's like, no, this is the Chainsaw Man Church arc, right? Like, yeah, there's things happening with like Fumiko, the house burning down, Denji facing off the hybrids, right? But like, this is still, to me, an obvious the Chainsaw Man Church arc. There's nothing within the prison break and leading up to the sushi restaurant that we see any inclinations, any foreshadowing, any fucking hints of
Hmm.
aging. I'm sorry, this is a completely separate arc, and I'm telling you, I think we need to break it down as two separate things because
Yeah,
this is not because this is just so fucking different.
I
And
agree.
yeah, and this is the part where I think to the prison break, right? Actually, let's talk about the prison break. Because I loved at the time when we were getting this, right? Of like seeing Gilly, seeing, some now the what do you call it? Like the sidekick of like Fami and Asa getting Denji out, doing
Yes.
this like one piece impel down of like, oh shit, every level that Denji's in, right? Because it was even teased that like this prison facility, no devils have gotten out, and we got the fucking baddest devils in this fucking facility. I'm like, yo, this is gonna be the One
Asa
Piece
using her
impel.
college fund to get the fucking turrets that they use. Yeah, the set at the
Yeah,
very
yeah,
beginning of
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like, yeah, oh shit, this is gonna be a big arc.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, no, this is its own little arc. And to only see it become like what, like 8 chapters, right? Where like every time we got closer and closer to Denji, there was more opposition, right? Even when Quan Chi was basically like the last person that was standing in their way, with Quan Chi even teasing, like, hey, like, I'm not gonna mess with this person because a friend once told me, blah, blah, blah. And there's the nod to Kishibe, and I'm like, cool. To him getting out, right? Like, even if it didn't go where I wanted it to go, I'm like, okay, that's fine if this prison arc is going to lead us with something more interesting. And now, post prison break, oh, and that's the idea too. We don't know why public safety basically chopped up Denji to so many fucking pieces. I can only imagine it's being hinted that public safety is using his blood to create their own version of like pseudo Chainsaw Men, right? To confront the Chainsaw Man Church army that Fami has built or acquired, and that they're going to use Denji's blood in some diabolical way to face off against death, right? That's never really touched upon. To be fair, it could be touched upon in these future arcs, right? Because I think it's crazy that like we see Denji be cut to pieces and that's not being revealed as to some bigger plan that public safety wants to use, right? But post that to Denji leading up to the Shinji hands, and how crazy is this? In Manga Plus, I think it was revealed the most read chapter last year in all of fucking manga was that Shinji
167.
hands moment. Yeah, it's kind of little, it's baffling of like, oh, that's the most read chapter because of like the spectacle of like what went down in it. But to also know this is the point within everyone in Chainsaw Man where, look, I know there's Chainsaw Man purists that's like, I love fucking Chainsaw Man Part 2. No, this is the part now where people are dividing.
Yeah,
Like the
true.
Chainsaw Man Church arc. We are now going through a real Chainsaw Man Church arc simulation where it's like, well, fuck, this is where I want the story to go. This is not where this is not what it's giving me. I don't like this. And it was so fucking painful that
Hmm.
we only got 14 pages of like, okay, Katana Man is suggesting a brothel. Okay, we get to the brothel. There's not a brothel. Okay, Denji hates himself, right? Like Denji's being like served again as a like a traumatic character, and he hates how he has, this moral compass of like, oh, I always think with my penis. And it's like, yeah, it's true, but like you just weren't raised properly, right? So it's like, yeah, you feel for Denji. And then Asa or Yoru's like, come to the alleyway, we're gonna cut your penis. And you're like, okay, where's this gonna go? To what it inevitably became the most read chapter of all of 2024. Okay, that's kind of wild. To, oh wait, Yoru kind of likes Asa, or Yoru kind of likes Denji because she shares the same brain with Asa. Cool. And now we get to the sushi restaurant, and now we see Barum again, and then we get this big fucking mic drop that like Naita is dead. Let's just hold on to that. I know some people are a little skeptical. I'm kind of still 50-50 myself, although I would appreciate if Fujimoto just kept her dead for the sake of the story, um, to Denji losing it. Now this is the beginning of the aging devil arc.
Yeah,
Okay,
I completely agree with you.
I just again I don't know who fucking is in the wiki team watching the no operator stream. I'm sorry. The prison break leading up to the sushi restaurant, I refuse to believe this is the aging devil arc.
Yeah,
This is the torture Denji arc. This is I fucking hate the Denji arc. I don't know. The depression arc, call it whatever you can. These are two different jarring moments in Chainsaw Man. And I think this is the part where the community is truly split.
it's so funny to me because not only do I think I completely agree with everything that you said, it's funny to me because this small portion, I'm almost realizing now, like this small section of chapters has almost soured my view of the Chainsaw Man Church. Almost, because I'm slowly realizing now and like thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? Like, I kind of did like Chainsaw Man Church, like almost going back and like I
Mhm.
kind of did like that setup. I kind of did like that moment. I kind of did like the Fumiko and whatever part was okay, but I kind of did like some of the Bara moments. I kind of did like Denji getting broken by his pets dying and Denji realizing being Chainsaw Man was all he wanted and you know like you said killing three. And then I'm like, you know what really ruined it for me was the added slowness of this mini arc I think at the end of it because I think this because the Chainsaw Man Church was already a little bit dividing because while it was because for me it was paying off a decent amount of the slow burn that we had been building up to the Fire Devil, you know, the Justice Devil actually being the Fire Devil, Fami doing the things that she does, Denji finally having to make a choice between his like it feels like a lot of these things are definitive. And then, like you said, it ends with Denji getting cut up for all these pieces to be for what we have to assume is what public safety just wanting to keep Denji safe until they needed him to break him out, or like because like it's yeah this is where it feels it's most aimless, it's most disjointed, and where it feels like a lot of the previous setups don't really get paid off or don't really amount to anything at least yet because we do take this huge detour of just torturing Denji and going through Denji trauma, and it's such a derailment of every from it's and this is I think what I meant when I said like the two stories, the one story of Denji depression and the other story of what is Chainsaw Man Part Two are in conflict with each other, and I feel like we're getting two different stories that he's struggling to weave through with this small little mini prison break arc. Like it's like this is the direct example of like this just feeling like Fujimoto kind of lost like he kind of lost it for a minute. I feel like he kind of
Mhm.
pulls it back together, but it's almost like he kind of lost the plot literally. Like he kind of like went
Mhm.
off track and went, "Oh shit, let me pull this back in real quick cuz I don't really know where I'm taking the story myself."
Yeah.
Um and yeah, and like I said, I think like I said at the end of this will I still feel the same way about this arc? Honestly, probably. Well,
Yeah.
like I just don't think there's anything substantial enough in this arc that it would make me go, yeah, you know what, this was required. Like, yeah, I saw someone in chat like the prison arc served to reveal Denji's identity to Asa. Definitely important. Set up future stuff with Fami and her powers, definitely important. You know, get Katana Man and the fan club on their side and create the permanent divide between Denji and public safety. Like, yes, yes, but like the thing is, like, a lot of those things could have been either done differently or were kind of already done and they just and it was just served to further emphasize it. Like Denji having a permanent divide between him and public safety, that kind of was already the case based off of everything that Yoshida does even before this. That
Yeah.
like, hey,
Yeah.
look, like
I
if you
think.
go against us, I will kill you. I will kill Nayuta. He kind of says this in the ultimatum that he gives them at the start of the arc, like revealing Denji's identity and like setting up Fami and her powers. Like Fami and her powers were kind of already set up with the Falling Devil. Sure, we get a little bit more, you know, view and understanding of how it works with Guillotine and everything like that, but
Mhm,
again,
mhm.
was already set up. And just revealing Denji's identity could have been done. Like it at the end of the day, like we did not need this subsection of chapters to do that. I think this could have been. We could have went right
Yeah.
from as someone said, we could have went right from Chainsaw Man Church to Sushi,
Mhm.
without having everything that happened in between and still accomplish the same goals. So yeah, I ultimately I completely agree with you. I did not like anything really out of this arc at all. I thought, like you said, I thought it set up pretty well with Asa and Fami showing up to this detention center that was supposed to be
Mhm.
impossible to break out. and
Yeah.
then we kind of just we kind of travel aimlessly for a couple chapters
Yeah.
until Fujimoto decides to pick up the story again with when he introduces the aging devil. Barum shows up, Nayuta, a decapitated head. Like it just like yeah, it
Yeah.
just you sounded like you wanted to say something, so I'll let you go. But yeah, I completely agree. This would even I wouldn't even put this as a C. I'd put this as a D. I'd lower it as an F to be honest with you if it was me. But I'll let you speak.
I will say I think the prison arc, just the prison arc by itself, I think told what it needed to tell. We learn a little bit more of how Fami's powers work. What's like, she's kind of doing this necessary good because she needs Denji for her plans, and she has to like, beat public safety by rescuing Denji, right? So I like that part, even, like how it wrapped up, I'm okay with, because I'm like, okay, this is like another connecting bridge, like the dating Denji arc, to get us to the sushi restaurant. I think it's just going to the sushi restaurant. I don't need any more examples to know how much trauma Denji is going
Yeah.
through. I think I learned in the Falling Devil arc. I think I learned with how Denji interacts with Asa, right? And I'm not saying you're not a smart reader if you didn't already get it at this point, but I feel like there's enough substantial characterization between both characters to know that these are both victims that went through some hardships and some trauma, and that they're probably the solution to get each other out of this dark hole. We've seen Denji already do this with Asa, and then we even see Asa tell this to Denji leading up to the sushi restaurant of like, hey, you went through a lot of shit. I can help you out too. I don't know why this couldn't have been one of the chapters explained, like leading Denji out of the prison break of like, hey, you went through some shit. I can help you through this. Right. So when we get these 2 to 3, 4, 5 chapters of like going to the sushi restaurant, and Denji breaking down saying, I always think with my penis, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I think I know what Fujimoto was trying to do with this character. But at this point, it's like, I already fucking know
Mm-hmm.
he's a tragic character. Like I know he's like fucking trying to do the right thing, but he's going about it the wrong way. And of course it's not his fault, right? And he feels like he's the victim because of like the circumstances that has happened around him, right? Like I understand that, but I feel like this stuff could have been omitted and I still would have got the same sympathy or empathy for Denji when he's in the aging devil arc saying this stuff again, because
Yeah.
leading up to the sushi restaurant when he's like, oh my god, I'm a tragic character, for him to say it fucking again in the aging devil arc, oh my god, I'm a tragic character, fucking just kill me. It's like, why did we have to double dip here? Like
This is where the 14-page chapters hit the worst because like you said, it's
dude,
like
yeah,
it would I feel like this could have been done better where if he really wanted to show every scene of a character interaction, like going to the brothel, going to trying this instead, like at the very least, like I feel like it would have been better if like we merged, like you said, let's say 6, 8, however long it is, if we just merged these chapters together.
mhm,
We did instead of having 8 chapters, we had 4 chapters, and like they go to the brothel, then they go to the sushi in the same. You know what I mean? Like it just
yeah, yeah,
we spend so much time and where it feels like we're really just doing nothing in the story. When it's
yeah,
like, yeah, eventually we're getting somewhere, but it takes a
yeah,
whole month just to get from the train to the sushi bar. When like,
yeah.
dude, it's like, what was the point of what happened in this month of Chainsaw Man?
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is the part too where like now I get angry, or angry is a strong word. I get irritated with a lot of people who try to clap back to me, and it's like, you don't get it. You think if he's just gonna become like a Chad and who just confident and can get over trauma, you're wrong. Like that's why I love Denji, and I'm like, I'm not saying he has to be a fucking Giga Chad. I'm just saying I already have seen enough examples in this story to know he's already a tragic character. So when he's in the aging devil world and he fucking cries to us again about like how much his life has sucked and how he kind of wants to end it, and it's like Asa slash Yoru that gets him out of it again, right? And Denji comes with this epiphany right towards the end of the aging devil arc, saying like, hey, you know what? Like, yeah, my life has sucked. But guess what? There's sushi waiting for me. There's fucking girls. There's sex. And guess what? I'm still Chainsaw Man. It's like I'm glad he got that, but I didn't need to see him suffer leading up to that sushi restaurant. Like I am still confident, right? If you take out even the Shinji hands, because that was the most significant thing that happened, right? Because like that leads into the most current chapters of like, hey, do you want another, hand job from me or whatever, right? Like, okay, this is why he's like motivated, or he's being put in this situation of like being motivated to defeat the Death Devil now. You could have done this in a different way. You could have omitted this, and you just could have had like the relationship and trials that they had to do to get out of the aging devil. I think be significant enough for me to get that point across.
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
I think that leads us perfectly right into the aging devil arc. Are you cool with D for this prison little mini arc?
Yeah. Sorry, I
Okay.
rambled like fucking crazy.
No, you're
Yeah,
good,
it's a
brother.
D. It's a D.
Perfect.
It's a D. Yeah.
Perfect. So the main reason that I think this is the perfect transition to the aging devil arc is because I will say that the one thing I do like about the aging arc, not just that the aging devil is a very great presence. I think he hits the nail on the head very similarly like the falling devil did, but in a different way, that the aging devil is actually an actively, I wouldn't necessarily say evil, but a very bad natured devil where all's that devil wants is because it's lived for so long. And I think it's also interesting too, hearing a primal fear that has never died and has been in hell for basically its whole life, being like, hey, you know what? I have seen almost everything, especially the aging devil who was able to make his own world and understand, what happens to humans if they live for thousands of years and they become enlightened and become a tree. And we know that from Makima, there was even 4 other solutions to other than death for human beings to go through that the Aging Devil might not remember completely, but has seen. And I love the idea of this primal fear that has lived for centuries, millennia, who knows how long, since the beginning of the void, is like, you know what? I've seen everything. I don't want to fucking do anything more. I just want to watch a bunch of fucking kids die and get eaten and let the rest of the fucking universe figure it out. I'm done. And I think that's a very interesting concept, especially, like I said, for this primal fear that has lived since the beginning of time and has never died whatsoever. I love that idea. I love the aging devil as a character, and the fact that yes, as Lord of Discordia said in chat, it actually continues a lot of the stuff that was introduced in the Chainsaw Man Church arc, as opposed to feeling like an aimless, disjointed transition phase, like the prison break did, with Barum showing back up, Nayuta dying, Denji becoming the Black Chainsaw Man. The one thing that I do essentially like, that I kind of started this with this rant with, was I do kind of like the characterization of Denji and Asa in the aging world, specifically because Denji, since getting cut up into pieces and getting trapped by public safety and everything like that, Denji really, the one thing that I think also gets harped on here, that Denji even yells at Asa for, because when they're in the aging world and Denji's still upset, Yoru tries to touch him again and he's like, dude, please fucking stop. He goes, every single time I have a moment to myself and I actually have a chance to sit here and try and like go through my emotions, someone either steps in and tells me to do something, or a girl comes in and gets me horny. He goes like, I have, and it brings me back to the Chainsaw Man Church arc when Fumiko gets brought into the equation and Denji is for once finally like sitting down and thinking about his place in life and what matters to him, where he has the thing, he's like, is this being what an ordinary person is like? And Yoshida's like, yeah. And it's just that panel of Denji looking as empty as he ever has been in the empty theater. And then when he really starts to talk to Fumiko about how he feels, that's when she touches him and he immediately like loses all train of thought. And we know that Denji's that kind of character. So I love that Denji also harps on this in this moment where he's like, you keep doing this and forcing yourself on me, and I haven't even had a chance to think straight since I was given the ultimatum of whether to live or be Chainsaw Man, since the Weapon Devils introduced me to the Chainsaw Man Church, since all of this terrorist attack happened and all of these innocent people died and people started becoming Chainsaw Man people, and the Chainsaw Man, the pro Chainsaw Man people and the anti Chainsaw Man people are protesting. I can't even go to school without getting into arguments and debates and fights about Chainsaw Man, when I'm not even getting the glory or credit for any of the Chainsaw Man stuff that the Chainsaw Man Church is doing. My pets have all died. My home has died. Like Denji does deserve a moment in the aging world to kind of pick himself back up, because he has been through a lot. with the longevity of how long it took for Denji to finally get this fucking closure, it definitely feels like beating a dead horse at this point, especially when some of these problems are problems that Denji has already had, and technically some of them he may have even already kind of solved. Um,
Mm.
but like, so I do appreciate, especially with the parallel of the Falling Devil, Asa being the one to step in and kind of help Denji in a way that he was able to help her when she was kind of thinking that there was no reason left to live.
Yeah.
Um, I also really like that. I also love Yoru's characterization up to this point as well. We can talk about the big fight with Yoru and Chainsaw Man because I don't want to leave that out either. And focus too much on the aging world stuff. But I do love Yoru's characterization up at this point. I brought up earlier about the scene of Asa and Yoru in the bathtub, of Yoru revealing that the reason why she has such a grudge against Chainsaw Man is because she wants to defeat him and avenge her children,
Mhm.
and everything like that, the gun, tank, everything like that. Also the nuclear war devil and everything that the comrades that Denji has eaten, or Pochita has eaten, I should say, not Denji.
Mhm.
She wants to avenge them, and that's what she's actually doing this for. This is why she cares so much.
Yeah.
And then also at the same time, in the middle of the fight, when it comes down to it, when Black Chainsaw Man is about to kill Yoru, and Yoru has a
Mm.
decision between absorbing gun and tank or just dying, she goes, you know what? This is all for me anyway, and fucking
Mhm.
absorbs them and shoots them and becomes even more powerful than Black Chainsaw Man is at the time right now. Um, I love Yoru's characterization, and I also love that her feelings for Denji are poking through in that when they are in the aging world and he is so upset, she genuinely, in her own devil way, is trying to cheer him up when she's like, hey, just get over it and keep moving forward. And he's like, that's what you have to fucking say to me. And yeah, that's very insensitive. And yeah, that's a very terrible way to help someone. But it shows how far Yoru has come from now to be the beginning of part two.
Yeah.
Of that, like, she really is, like, she's trying, at least, right? Like, she's not
Yeah.
perfect, she's a devil,
Yeah.
she's one of the four horsemen, but she is trying. um
Mhm. Mhm.
so yeah, I do like the fact that Denji has this trauma, and that a lot of the devils that Black Chainsaw Man eats are directly related to Denji's trauma, because Pochita doesn't want Denji to forget the trauma. He wants Denji to accept the trauma and embrace it. And the lesson that Denji learns, that, hey, you know what? I've lost my family before. I just lost my family again. But you know what? Fuck it. Like, yeah, there are sushi and girls out there, but you know what? As long as I follow my path and do what's right, I will find another family. Which is at least how I personally took the lesson that Denji learned, is that, like, hey, I
Yeah.
lost Aki and power. I lost Nayuta now. I got over Aki and power and found my life with
Mhm.
Nayuta. Now I lost
Yeah.
Nayuta. I'll find my new life again somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of yapped for a very long time, but that's what I really, really like about the Aging Devil arc personally,
Yeah.
is where I feel
Yeah.
like Fujimoto does get really back into the characterization and the why I loved these characters, on top of the big fight and the crazy shit that's going on
Yeah.
outside of the aging
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. Yeah, whoever said it earlier that this arc complements the Chainsaw Man Church arc now only makes me hate the prison arc so much more. Because if that was truly just like omitted, right? And we got this because, coming off the cusp of the Falling Devil and how it was Denji that helped lifted Asa up, to now we see it being in reverse in the Aging Devil arc, where Denji now truly is at his all-time low, right? Like, this is very good characterization to me. And this is all sprinkled in with a vintage Chainsaw Man church, or with a vintage Chainsaw Man arc from part one, where we get these great character pieces, but we don't have too much time to dwell on them because there's so much action
Hmm.
happening in the way that Chainsaw Man has been famously notorious for, right? Where it's like, it's like the moment in the Bomb Devil arc where, Denji tells Reze, it's like, everyone wants fucking Chainsaw Man's heart, but they don't want my art. They don't want my heart. And I'm like, dude, I want to see this explored, but there's too much, quite literally, bombastic shit happening,
Hmm.
right? Where it's like, we don't have time to dwell on it. But I love that, like, this is a talking point that Fujimoto kind of wants us to think about in between the craziness, because, when we see now Yoru trying to have this moment where she's about to die from the Black Chainsaw Man, and she's like, "Fuck, I gotta sacrifice my children, because if I don't sacrifice my children right here, I am quite literally fucking gone." You know, and we see this is the moment where Chainsaw Man Part 2, like a high, the highest of highs, right? We see the gun goddess. That is one of the
Oh
creepiest
God, yeah.
fucking panels, dude. I mean, hell, that's a fucking playmat off my store, right? So it's like one of the coolest fucking things that we got out of Chainsaw Man, and this is vintage Chainsaw Man to me, where it's like, yo, this is the equivalent of like the Gun Devil. I am all for it, and again, just little pieces of like, Denji saying, everyone wants Chainsaw Man's heart, but they don't want my heart, right? We see the flashback of like Asa and Yoru in the tub, and she just having this moment where it's like now she's being vulnerable for the first time, and now we understand, even though she's a devil, that like, oh, she's not completely evil, and why she's truly after Chainsaw Man, and why she wants to like get her fellow comrades back, right? Like nuclear war, she wants all these devils that like she feels and even if it's a bit like childish or immature, of like, no, I just want to beat Chainsaw Man because I want to get what the suffering blow that he did to me long ago, right? Like that's fine. I love this. And then now the enemy of the enemy has become my friend, because the fucking aging devil is just so top tier. Like I loved how in one chapter we see, granted, Pochita maybe just didn't want to fight Yoru for whatever reason with holding up the blood sign, but this is one of the strongest devils in the verse. Black Chainsaw Man gets eviscerated with this gun goddess attack. And then we see like in one or two chapters, the aging devil's like, yo, what is this fodder shit? And like disintegrates this fucking massive bullet from a souped up, more powerful war devil, because of what we learned from the previous arcs of the fire devil making these contracts with all these people that ramped up the power of chainsaws, that
Yeah.
ramped up the power of war, and the aging devil fucking nerfed that attack like it was nothing. And I'm like, holy shit. And now in a different way, I love how we get these layers of all these primal fears of like, okay, the darkness devil got us this, the falling devil got us this. And like you said earlier, I loved it. We have this aging devil who has no fucking appreciation for life because it's been around for so long. And now it just has this Joker mentality of like, look, Chainsaw Man, I just want you to fucking eat me so 10,000 people, children, can just go away, and I just want to see you succumb to like your innate nature of what you are, right? Because that's just going to give me some joy before I leave. And now you just see this whole back and forth of like, just eat me, and I promise you, you'll just get out of my world. And now at the same time, this characterization and this trauma bonding, right, that Yoru and Asa, or that Yoru and Denji now has to fucking do, because they have no other choice, right? And I really wish we could have stayed in that world a little bit more, because there were so many things presented that I wish we could have got more of, right? Like the deeper you go into the forest, the more crazier you become. And we see the guy in the underwear, I forgot his name, that he was a renowned, like devil hunter, and he just, I forgot the deal that he made with aging on why he like went into the world, but
It was like completely the scary. That was one of the scariest parts. It was like so unconsensual. He like looked in the mirror one day and was like, damn, I wish I didn't have these fucking aging lines, and like inadvertently made a contract accidentally through the mirror.
Yeah.
Like that was like one of the scariest things. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
And like also like just
Yeah.
to add on that, and I'll let you continue, is
No,
like
go ahead.
they also like build up this thing of like the there has only been one person to ever escape the aging world, but they never elaborate on that ever again. And like I remember when they said that, like so many people were like, is it Yoshida? Is that why he's so like crazy? Like is it Kishibe like back in his day? Like, and it's like and like you said, it's like it's one of those things where it's like we get that little sprinkle of lore, but everything's so crazy going on. It's like we don't even have time to focus on it. Which it would, I definitely agree with you. I think the aging world was one of the highlights of the arc, and I would have loved to explore it more. But I'm sorry, go ahead for interrupting you.
No. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the Yoshida thing because a lot of people, reference the volume cover of like Yoshida and like, it looks like Yoshida anyway, like some guy who looks depressed walking in a forest, and we're like, oh shit, is this gonna like be brought back later?
Hmm.
And and then when Denji inevitably throws up Yoshida, we're like, oh shit, like he this was the guy who escaped, and now we're gonna learn how and the backstory behind that. But no, we
And
don't
then he's
really
like,
know
"Oh,
that.
where are we? What is this?" And it's like, "Oh, well, there goes that theory."
Yeah, there goes that theory. And what's the correlation of the one person who escaped? I guess we'll never know. But again, this still tying in nicely with the Chainsaw Man Church arc and the aging devil trying to do its thing in the real world while Yoru and Tenji is trying to get out. I think it's really well done. And even if Yoshida was the connecting piece of like, hey, this is the plan I got. Let me know what you guys are thinking. I will say, as good as the Aging Devil arc was, right, with Yoru facing off against the Black Chainsaw Man, the Gun God is being trapped into the world, being introduced to the guy with the underwear, and like what could have been explored there, and then even seeing the glimpses of like Aki and power, and like Reze with bitterness, right? Like I don't know how I didn't put that two and two together of like him consuming the bitterness devil and how that reminded him of coffee and how coffee was bitter to him and how he remembered Reze and how much like he loved her, right? Like I think there's like a line where it's like, oh yeah, like he loved that girl, dude. I thought like cool, we're being teased all this stuff to essentially getting out in the way that we did and how it was executed was fine. But I will say, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of myself, I think the one misstep, and people are kind of like against me a little bit on this, is that I don't know. I'm just gonna call it for what it is. I think it's a Deus Ex Machina that Fumiko fucking got them out, and we got no explanation on that.
No explanation as to how or why
No
that happened.
explanation.
That
And
I was gonna bring that up if you didn't. Is that was definitely one thing that I think is an unforgivable Fujimoto sin. It's like, dude, I understand you want to keep it a secret, but if it's gonna be the reason we win the arc, you have to tell us why, bro.
yeah,
You
yeah,
have to,
yeah,
or at least vaguely or at least explain it enough to the point where we vaguely maybe have a hint, and
yeah,
like we know it will be explained to us later, right? Like don't just
yeah,
like the fact that the arc ended with just page flip, we're eating cake at a table, and then like it's like, okay, we can elaborate on this. Everyone that's important is here right
yeah,
now at
yeah,
this table. And
yeah,
then the next chapter,
mm,
Yoru and
yeah,
Denji immediately run away from everybody and separate
yeah,
themselves. And it's like, oh, okay.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, no, this is a miss to me, and I think in so many levels. And one, let me go ahead and just fucking retract what people have said to me, where it's like, well, when Makima died early on in Chainsaw Man Part 2, we didn't know the answer for that until many chapters later. And I'm like, yes, you're right. However, that was something we saw with Makima's character all throughout Chainsaw Man Part 1. And then when it was inevitably like revealed to us, right? Like we had so much backstory, and there was like something intriguing about Makima where it's like, okay, she's saying one thing, but there's something lurking with her that, it was never a Deus Ex Machina that Makima died, right? It's
yeah.
like, okay, we want to know why she keeps on being resurrected, but
If
like that never detracted or got the main cast out of a situation that they couldn't get out of,
completely
right?
different scenarios, yeah,
It's a
her
completely
surviving that train
yeah,
attack or stuff like that is like, okay, that creates the mystery, we want to know more.
correct,
Fumiko
correct,
doing everything, we want to know more, but like we need to know more now because okay, guys, we just, well, again, we won an entire arc, like
correct, correct,
everyone was saved, like this is kind of important. And again, you can still
correct,
vaguely explain things to us without giving away the entire bag, but still satisfying, like, hey,
correct,
I was
correct.
able to do this because it's, oh, I like, I have a seat, like I don't know, but yeah, no, I completely agree with
Yeah,
you. And I'm
no,
sorry,
no,
keep going.
no. And I think that's why, like, when you talk about it, like, it just frustrates me because it's like, okay, so the climax of the Aging Devil arc was solved because of Yoshida, which is fine, right? Like, okay, he's one of the pieces on how like we get out, right? Like it was Yoshida's idea. But then Fumiko comes out of nowhere, surprises a fucking primal fear, says,
Yep.
who is this other Fumiko? And then Fumiko's like, I'm gonna side on the side that I think is gonna win. So sacrifice my heart. And we know in Chainsaw Man, the bigger the sacrifice, the stronger the power, right? Like Himeno sacrificing her entire body to make the Ghost Devil OP for a little bit, right? Now we understand how the Octopus Devil was able to consume a primal fear because it like got something really valuable. So if this was the end of Fumiko, honestly, good riddance for me,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't fucking care, you know. Now she's served her purpose, and even if we didn't know what her devil contract was, I'm okay with that because okay, she was now used for this pivotal moment. But then when she was used for this, and then we don't get the answer closing off the aging devil arc, but you know we get everyone the Marvel the Avengers eating the shawarma restaurant scene, right? I said here, and I said it in those arcs, those chapters when they came out. I need to know this answer. And if we don't know this answer, then at least sprinkle it a little bit that the tantalize me about it, right? Because I feel like now if I know this answer later on, it's not as impactful and it's still a little bit of an easy out for
Yeah.
no fucking reason.
Yeah.
Like this is the part where I just like again, the difference with Makima and the Fumiko thing is that Makima was a character of mystery and intrigue all throughout, and her dying didn't lead the group out of like some unnecessary situation, right? Like even with the Darkness Devil thing, she knew she had to get the fuck out really fast. And it's not like she defeated the Darkness Devil. She just fucking escaped. You know, she used her escape rope, right? Pokemon style to get the fuck out. And that was it, right?
Yeah.
Here, it's like, okay, she got the gang out of this situation. We don't know what Fumiko is capable of, what her devil powers are. And you're introducing this concept at the very end game of Chainsaw Man. I think this is inexcusable.
It's like
I
if
think this is a
Goku went
fucking
Super Saiyan against Frieza, and then Toriyama didn't explain at all what Super Saiyan was. It's just, okay, we just have to assume that Goku now had blonde hair and got super stronger. We don't know why, but it happened, and now we're just going to keep moving on, and now everyone keeps getting blonde hair, but we don't know why. And then at the very end of Z, it's like, oh, hey, by the way, this is Super Saiyan. It's like,
yeah.
no, you should have told us this fucking a long time ago. Like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head where it's like it could get to the point where by the time we do find out, it's like who fucking cares anymore? You know, it's
Yeah.
like it's not
Yeah.
this isn't
Yeah.
important anymore. We don't it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because like okay, and this is what I said too. Even if we didn't get the answer, I would have loved like if Yoru and Denji when they went to their separate ways to eat the fucking you know I don't know the food at the Chinese restaurant. You give me half a page of fucking Fami, Yoshida, and Fumiko talking, and you know because Yoshida like hired Fumiko to protect Denji a long time ago, right in the Chainsaw Man Church arc. I just would have loved some little conversation. So it's like, oh, so you finally used that ability. She's like, yeah. You know, like, wasn't it
Yes.
crazy? Like, didn't I tell you right? Like, just give me something. Even if you don't give me the fucking answer, at least acknowledge what the fuck we just saw. Because you stooped the fucking aging devil. The aging devil's like, wait, what the fuck is happening? How are you still here? I don't know. You know? So I don't
Yeah.
know. Like that's the thing. I feel like you know whether you're the doppelganger, you made a contract with the doppelganger or the copycat devil or whatever. It just I think it was just a little bit of a convenient out, and there could have been something clever if we didn't see this. Right?
I have another perfect example, and then I want to go into public safety and then closing thoughts.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Yeah. You're good.
but yeah, it would be like how we talked about in the Falling Devil, how the Falling Devil arc ended when the Justice Devil throws up Denji and Asa, and Falling kills it, and then that throws everything off. It would be like if we didn't get that small scene afterwards of Nayuta and Fami talking about how Nayuta was the reason that Justice Devil threw up Denji and Asa. It's like, okay, then they
Mhm.
just threw up them for no reason. What is the why? What did this
Yeah.
happen for? And it's like, oh, it's a secret. I'm not going to tell you until later. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, no, it's like we need this now. But anyway, the last thing I want to focus on in this arc, and obviously get your thoughts on it before we finish off, because we've been
Sure.
going for over 3 hours now, is public safety's desperation is on full display here with how they're
Mhm.
willing to sacrifice not just all of the children for the aging devil, but how you know we go through the loss of the ear devil, the loss of the mouth devil. My whole thing during a lot of my chapter reviews during this moment was I was like, who in public safety is making the calls to send these fucking devils?
Mhm.
If we're going to experiment and test, Black Chainsaw Man's power of what it can eat, what it erases, and what it affects, I feel like there are plenty of other devils that we could use at disposal. Like let's throw the tomato devil out there and see what happens when the tomato devil gets eaten and if all of tomatoes disappear from the world. Right? Like we're sacrificing mouth and ear.
Mhm.
What? I
Yeah.
thought that like public safety is clearly at like their last legs of what they can do. We also see this with the prime minister and like all of these high level political figures being involved in this decision. Um and the way that they are just bending the knee to this primal fear because they are that scared of the death devil. And you really
Yeah.
see like how like not just the Chainsaw Man Church who are doing their own thing in world politics and doing their own thing to affect the world and possibly stop the death devil. Public safety is also pulling their strings and doing, ungodly, pretty much evil fucking shit for the quote unquote greater good. So I think that's really the last thing that I want to harp on because I didn't want to forget that portion because I think we kind of nailed almost everything else in this arc.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
but I do really like that aspect to everything that public safety was willing to go this far to try and
Mhm.
test their theory that Chainsaw
Yeah.
Man might be able to eat the Death Devil and save them from everything, or at the very least,
Mhm.
if they can't eat the Death Devil, Chainsaw Man can eat something that keeps humanity alive despite the death devil arriving, which was their plan of if he eats aging, we might be able to eliminate death entirely from the human race, which the red bell alarm bells in my head immediately go off when I'm like, doesn't this just mean we this doesn't stop us from dying? I don't know how you guys came to this conclusion, but I'll let you. I'd love to get your thoughts.
So yeah, I'm gonna add something that we didn't talk about either that coincides with this is the whole concept of because Aging Devil said it. It's like these people turn into trees on their own.
Yeah,
My dimension, my domain expansion had nothing to do with this. So when people, for whatever reason, don't eat or drink in the world of Chainsaw Man, or at least in the Aging Devil's Pocket dimension, they turn into fucking trees, and there's something that they are trying to ascend to. So I think that's a nice parallel to what public safety was trying to do in a extreme way, right? Of like, hey, if we can have Chainsaw Man consume these things, and let's test the theory of like bitterness and snow and all this other stuff, then maybe we can circumvent death, right? And I'm like, oh shit, this is an interesting concept. Like, I hope we kind of dive more into this concept of like what people are in this verse of Chainsaw Man of like becoming this higher being, but still essentially being reincarnated back into Earth. If they become these trees or whatever. So there's something interesting there. Um, and yeah, it was again, this is kind of the Chainsaw Man Church problem where it's like, okay, we have some interesting things I want to bite and know more about, but it doesn't really wrap up nicely. And for as good as this Aging Devil arc was, right? I'm not talking about prison. I'm not talking about the sushi restaurant. I'm talking about, you know, Asa and Yoru facing off against Black Chainsaw Man, what they have to do in the Aging Devil world, and how we get to the conclusion. Um, yeah, there's many good things here, some missteps, but we'll see where it goes, right? So I
yeah.
think my closing thoughts is, I don't think it's an A. I think it's a B.
Oof. Okay, okay. I think this would be our first disagreement because I would probably put this in an A,
And an
just
A. Okay.
because I honestly, if I was to be completely honest with you, I would give
Mm.
this an S if it didn't end the way that it did. To be
Ooh.
completely honest with you, like I think this meets the level of the Falling Devil for me, at least personally, it
Sure,
does.
sure, sure.
Just like I said, just for me, I'm a sucker for Fujimoto's characterization. I really
Mhm, mhm.
enjoyed not just the aging world portion. I really
Mm.
enjoyed the original or the beginning fight with Yoru
Sure.
and like this arc of Chainsaw Man had everything in it that I like out of Chainsaw Man, if that makes
Yes.
sense. And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I
yeah.
want out of part two. The
Mhm.
ending was a little bit of a miss, but
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like I'm willing to forgive that and still give it an A. But if we can kind of call it an in between a little bit, right? Um,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
Y
but
you know what though? I
go
I
ahead.
think when I just look at if I'm comparing it to the Justice Devil arc, I think it hits everything that I want it to hit and gives me more things I want, right? If we look at the Justice Devil arc, and then when we look at the Falling Devil arc, it's like the Aging Devil arc is like the Falling Devil arc, but with some missteps. And it's not like it's minor missteps, it's missteps that like annoys me. You know, that's why I feel like I can't give it an A. If we give it an A, it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. What's between a B plus and a fucking A minus? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like but like I don't think I disagree with you on why you give it an A, right? Like it's what vintage that and that's what I said earlier too. The Aging Devil arc is vintage Chainsaw Man.
Yes,
Right? Like
definitely.
there's just so much fucking craziness. There's so many good highs. I think maybe the missteps for me just irks me a little bit more than they do for you, and maybe that's why I
Yeah.
just can't
Well,
give it
for
an
me,
A.
the way that I think about it is I would definitely put Aging Devil Arc higher than like Dating Denji
Sure,
or Chainsaw
I
Man
agree.
Church. Like like
I
like
agree.
like
I agree.
like comparing like you know like because like I would say Dating Denji and the Aging Devil Arc are somewhat similar in like the Asa and
Yeah,
Denji interactions and being stuck in like an alternate world where they're forced to open up
yeah.
and relate to each other. Like I think the Aging Devil is just a lot more satisfying to read, if that makes sense personally. Um, but here's my change of thought. I think after everything, like I think looking at Falling Devil up at S and if I like personally, we're kind of torn between A and B for Aging Devil. Do you think Justice Devil by the end of all this, do you think we have convinced ourselves that Justice Devil arc is actually peak Chainsaw Man, it's actually S, or do you think A still makes most
Ooh,
sense?
ooh. Okay, here's the thing with the Justice Level arc. They're just a lot of chapters there, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to make it more of an S tier, or even if there's some minor missteps, right? Like I think why the Falling Devil arc is S because we got 11 chapters of a beginning, middle, end, and it executed all of them to me very flawlessly, right? Not to say that the beginning arc and introduction of Chainsaw Man didn't do that, but we were just kind of like just waiting to see where it was going to go, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. I don't know. If you want to put it in S, I wouldn't argue with you. I still think the Falling Devil arc is like the arc to beat. Um, but yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe the Aging Devil arc is A, and then the Justice Devil arc is like high A, low S.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, you know
Yeah,
what? I think we'll leave the tier list as is. I'm pretty happy with it
sure.
as it is. And like I said, Aging Devil kind of like I said, Miles rates it as a B, I'll rate it as an A, but take it as you will there. Um Honestly, the fact that we have a brand new chapter coming tomorrow is almost like poetic after how much that we've discussed about all of our feelings and everything that we said, and especially
Mhm.
with the one thing I will say that I've come out of this discussion with is I definitely have a little bit more of an appreciation for where the story is and where it's going, especially when we put it all
Yeah.
in like on a chart like this. It's like you can kind of understand how Chainsaw Man Church links a lot more with everything that came before than maybe while we were
Mhm.
reading it weekly. Same with
Yeah.
the Aging Devil. Whereas like like I said, like I'm even willing to say that my bad thoughts of the Chainsaw Man Church were actually misguided because the prison arc actually soured my taste so much. I actually can
Mm,
actually like
mm,
kind of group the two together
yeah.
subconsciously. Um,
Yeah.
but also at the same time, like yeah, also I think for me, what I'm understanding about Fujimoto is it's kind of the same thing that my issues that I had with not to spoil anything for people that don't read JJK, but the same issues I had with Sakurajima Colony in Jujutsu
Mhm.
Kaisen, where it's almost like Gege and Fujimoto, they have everything, all this build up, all this setup for characters, plot, everything, and they know exactly what they want to do with it, but
Yeah.
once they put pen to paper, they don't know how to execute. They have
Yeah.
all of the foundation, all of the great story, and everything is there. But when they're putting it pen to paper, there's just something that misses for them there, where like they just, and for Fujimoto, I feel like it comes out very much in these transitionary phases of the story, where he's going
Mhm.
from falling or where he's going from Chainsaw Man Church to aging. That prison break in between was very
Yeah.
aimless, very almost like he didn't really know how to get from A to B. He knew what
Yeah.
A and B were, but he
Yeah.
struggled getting to those 2 points. And it's
Mm.
almost like we're entering that
Yeah.
phase again where Fujimoto knows what he wants the next arc to be, but it's
Yeah.
then getting Denji, Yoru, and all of these other characters from the cafe that they were in to where everyone needs to be for this new arc to happen. It's almost like
Yeah.
those in between portions is where he really struggles the most. But when
Yeah.
he's in where he wants to be, he's
Yeah.
killing it.
Yeah.
And that's just what I've taken out of this. And again, we got like 8 minutes left, and I don't want to take up more of your night because I do
No,
appreciate
no,
you
you're
coming
fine. You're
on. But if you have anything else to throw in before we call it, please.
fine.
I don't want to cut you
Wow.
off or make you or rush you
No,
at
no,
all.
no,
But
no. I think that was just so eloquently said. Now it kind of makes me think about the aging, like the aging arc differently. I think now I would agree with you, where I think it's an A because, like, yeah, I think now thinking about leading up to the sushi restaurant, Fujimoto knew what he wanted to do. He just didn't know how to, like, fast pass us. Like, he couldn't teleport us there, like, quickly, and
exactly.
I think it just hurt more waiting the week to week, and it doesn't help we get 14 pages as opposed to the conventional 18 to 22, like other shonen stories, right? So I think that definitely hurt. And I will say, despite the criticisms leading up to the aging devil and the sushi and all that stuff, I think this upcoming arc, if you want to call it the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse arc, I think this has the the potential to be another S tier without a doubt. Because if we truly are in the end game, like, what do we have ahead of us, right? We have to know what has been going on with the fake chainsaw man. We have to fucking know that. It's just like you cannot omit that anymore, right? So, like, we have to know that story. Whether Kishibe or Reze is in the story, I guess I think that will be a different conversation for a different day on how they are brought or not brought into this story. But to see how we see these characters come into full circle and confront death with the high ranking generals such as fire and fucking, I don't know, water. Give us all the Avatar fucking people. I don't know. Like, there's going to be lots of interesting things there. And I think, when we look at Falling Devil and we look at the Aging Devil, and to see another primal fear that's going to be, alongside death, how the fuck are they going to do this? I mean, and hello, like, we finally got one of the biggest things that was teased all the way in part one finally be brought to attention to the fandom, is this whole contract with the Reborn Again Blood Devil. So it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, like, there's a lot of good things here, and I don't know how many chapters we're gonna get to this final arc, but I think this arc, now that we're truly here at this end game, it should only be high, right? Like,
agreed.
I don't expect it to miss anymore.
Agreed. I think Fujimoto definitely has what it takes to stick the landing, and like we both kind of even agreed with. It seems like once Fujimoto gets to where he needs to go, and it seems like he does have the major portions mapped out pretty well. I have no doubt he'll execute very well. I have no doubt that a lot of the things that he's been building up, even though you've probably heard us complain about them for almost 4 hours, I'm sure a lot of these things that we're upset about will be answered. And if they're not, at the very least, by the end of the story, they may not even be important enough for it to affect our view of the overall part two, right? Because that
Mm.
happens a lot of times too, where like what we end up getting is like, okay, we got this. I'm a little upset we didn't get this, but I'm still happy that we got what we got. And ultimately, at the end of the day, fake Chainsaw Man, Kishibe, Rize, all these characters showing up. Fami getting more involved as a major antagonist, finding out more about public safety's background, and now that Denji's trauma has hopefully been fully healed, and now he has the ultimate end game of having sex in front of him. And at this point, I know a lot of people are thinking that Denji has regressed, but I do think that Denji is because I think the Blood Devil and everything like that. It's interesting how they do bring up, oh, if Control Devil comes back, they won't be the same. If Blood Devil comes back, they won't be the same. And Denji's like, you know what? Then I might as well forget about that, forget everything from my past life, and move forward and pick with you. This new arc does seem to be something great. Let's hope that we can just get out of this fucking transition phase that we're in right now and just get right to it. And let's hope that after this break week, that's exactly what we're gonna get to. But
Yeah.
seriously, thank you so much, man, for being on the stream. It was a long time. I took up so much of your night, and I really
Dude,
appreciate
no,
it.
this was a fucking blast, dude. This is how passionate we are about this. It's like, even with all the complaints, it's like, bro, how can anyone say we hate this story when we fucking rambled for 3 hours straight?
Seriously, bro,
You
it's
know?
it's true. It's passion, and it's a and,
Yeah.
and it's a fun conversation between like
Mhm.
two people that unfortunately, like, well, it's not even unfortunately, it's very fortunately, we're both blessed to be able to do this, to be able to
Yeah.
just examine almost every single page of this chapter weekly and try our best to interpret whatever the fuck Fujimoto's doing and what might be coming next, and what people might be feeling and how our own feelings are, and it's fun to me that like we were both able to like not necessarily gum into this planning on changing each other's minds, but like
Mhm.
talking to each other and just getting each other's perspectives on everything. Like we're like, oh wow, I never really thought of that, or oh wow, you know what, like I didn't consider that. Like I feel like you like made me look at a lot of things that I wouldn't have normally looked at. And yeah,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, like you said, like for two grown men to yap for almost 3.5 hours about something, like you can say that like our criticisms are unfounded and disagree as much as you want, but clearly we've
Yeah.
got something to say.
Yeah, yeah, and I think too, I mean, I'm probably gonna stream it on my own end, but I think the end of Chainsaw Man Part 2, however it ends, I think this is another ripe opportunity for us to hop on and just
Agreed.
get the
Agreed.
immediate thoughts.
I think without a
Yeah,
doubt we should be
yeah,
we should get
yeah,
together at the end of this and see
yeah.
what holds true, and if we were wrong about anything.
Mhm,
If fake Chainsaw Man is time traveling Denji from few days of future past after the death.
mhm,
But
mhm,
I'm sure that would be just as fun of a discussion as this one was, for sure, and especially if it does lead to part three, because oh boy, the conversations that could be had about the speculation leading into that, with whatever the
yeah,
way it ends and how it leads into, could be crazy. But
yeah.
take your time, please. Take a minute or two, please. If you have anything that you want to share with the audience, if you have anything that you want to show, I can put anything on screen, whatever you want me to do. But I thank you so much,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
man,
yeah.
for being here.
Yeah, let me see if I can whip it out. So people don't know this, people know on my Discord, but there is a playmat I made of the War Devil and Chainsaw Man. So it's right here.
Hey.
It's beautiful. And let me tell you right now, I am going to gift you one, no operator,
Oh no,
because
stop.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I will gift you one, but for everyone who's interested, nengarden.com is my merch store. And if you use discount code Fumiko, you will get 48% off this playmat.
Ooh.
So
What was the website again?
nengarden.com. So Nen, like Nen from like Hunter x Hunter, garden.com.
I'm gonna put you on screen here. I'm gonna
Yeah.
post the link in chat as well.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. It's not revealed to the public, but for you guys, if you use Fumiko, you will get 48% off either the desk pad or the playmat. So
That is
and I'm using
awesome. Look
both
at that. We got the
currently. Yeah.
DJ Miles breaking news at the beginning and the DJ Miles special promo at the end. My brother.
Yeah.
Awesome,
There
man.
you
And I
go. There you go.
appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Don't have
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
that.
Oh, and I think Fumiko also works on the Don playmat too. So
Hey, okay.
yeah,
I
yeah,
posted your
yeah.
link in the chat. Obviously, you got his YouTube channel
Mhm,
on the
mhm.
title in the description. Please subscribe to DJ Miles again if you love Chainsaw
Yeah.
Man content, and you loved this 3.5 hour conversation. Then you will love
It's
all
three
the
and a half
content
hours.
this
Holy
man
shit.
makes. Trust me.
Holy shit. 3.5 hours. That's fucking nuts.
Remember
Yeah.
when I was like, yeah, hour and a half, 2 hours maybe at
I know, an
best.
hour and a half, 2 hours max. I know. That's what he said before the stream, dude. Let me also just ask you one last thing. What is the Chainsaw Man like thing you want? Like for like if you can have it anyway, like what's the one thing you want? Whether it's like Reze, whether it's Kishibe, like what's the wish list for Chainsaw Man Part 2 for you?
If I could have anything out of Chainsaw Man Part Two, you know what? I'm a very simple man. I'm a very simple man.
Mhm.
I don't need Kobeni to come back. I don't need Kishibe to come back. I don't need Rize to come back. You know what I would really, really, just really love? I would just love if we don't ever have another torture Denji arc ever again, and Denji is
Mm,
just he's developed. We're here
yeah.
and we're done, right? Where we've moved
Mm,
on. If Fujimoto can just give me that, I'll die happy. Please, I have related to Denji more than I ever possibly could. I have felt sorry for
mm,
him more than I ever possibly could. Please let this pick himself up and find this new resolve on life be the last time, because if it happens again, it really will be too old at this point.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think to piggyback on that is, yeah, if all of part two was about this characterization and deep diving into Asa and Yoru, give me a Chainsaw Man part three and make it resemble like part one as much as possible.
Yep.
Give me memorable characters that come in as fast as they come out, and let's fucking defeat the Death Devil or whoever that final boss is. Like,
Hey, with
and it doesn't have to be as long as part one and part two. Like even if
not at
Chainsaw Man
all.
part three is like 40 chapters, but it's fucking crazy from start to finish. Sign me up.
Telling you, brother, Apocalypse Saga with just Denji and Asa living in the fucking just world of just all the high ranking hell devils living out in the open, dude. That would be that's 40 chapters worthy. That's a quick beginning and give me 2 arcs, all I need, and finish it up. But yeah, either way, Chainsaw Man is a great story, whether you love it or hate it. There's so many different things to enjoy, and I think in the examination of whether Chainsaw Man Part Two is cheek or peak, uh, personally, I love it so far, and we're just gonna have to wait till the end to figure out if figure out that answer. But again, thank you, DJ Miles, for coming on. You're a great man. Appreciate everything, guys. Please go subscribe to his channel. Go check out his merch store, nengarden.com. It is in the chat, and it will be. I'm gonna add it to the description as well, and put it in a pinned comment. And I will see all of you beautiful people in the next stream. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Peace, peace, peace.